I'm Amanda, a 32-year-old nurse, married to John for 5 years. We met in college when he was studying to be a doctor, and I was training to be a nurse. We started dating at a party, then got married. John is dedicated to becoming a doctor, but he's faced setbacks. He's failed his medical licensing exam twice and took 3 years off. Right now, he's working part-time and studying hard to pass, while I'm working full-time as a nurse to support us. He doesn't care about showing off wealth, like those who post photos of fancy cars online. Instead, he reads stories about people who lost loved ones to illness, keeps up with public health news, and studies Japan's healthcare system. I admire him because he genuinely wants to be a doctor to help people. Even though he's not a doctor yet and doesn't make much money, I've stayed by his side. John hasn't told his parents that he hasn't passed his exam yet. He says, "My mom's too nosy," and I reassure him, "I support you, so don't worry about them. This is just temporary." John works night shifts as a security guard at the hospital where I work. He has some medical knowledge from his studies, so he can talk like a doctor, and no one suspects he's still working toward his license. Even his family thinks he's a doctor because he sounds knowledgeable and is technically employed at the hospital. My mother-in-law, however, is harsh and very different from my husband. She has a strong personality and often looks down on me because I'm just a nurse. She thinks her son deserves someone better, maybe a beautiful doctor from dermatology. After she saw a pay stub, which actually wasn't mine, she made rude comments. She scoffed. Only earning $750 a month is like a college student's allowance. Even students working at bars make more. Having a low-income wife is a disgrace. Maybe you should divorce so our son can find a better wife. He's the ultimate triple threat. After all, her judgmental attitude makes it hard for me, but I choose to support John through his challenges, even though his mom doesn't think I'm good enough for him. Whenever my mother-in-law makes these rude comments, I just bow my head and apologize. I fully support my husband's goal of becoming a doctor, but at this point, he's only a high school graduate with a lot of medical knowledge, working part-time, not even a medical intern yet. Still, he's always genuinely grateful, often telling me, "Thank you for everything," so I continue to support him quietly. I'm busy with work, too, and even with both our incomes, we're barely managing financially, but I never cared much about money when I chose this career. I became a nurse because I admired Florence Nightingale and wanted to help people. Now, I work in internal medicine, one of the most demanding fields, and I don't think about money much. As long as we have enough to live, eat, and stay healthy, that's enough for me. Even though I'm supporting us both, covering his living expenses and school fees, my mother-in-law still brags to the neighbors, saying, "My son's a doctor and earns well." If he were already a real doctor, he wouldn't want her showing off about his income anyway. But she doesn't care, she just talks about money all the time. As her son, he has to put up with it silently. She has no idea that he's actually working as a security guard in a hospital uniform, not walking around in a white coat like she brags about. And even if he were, that's not something to go around gossiping about. I understand her pride, but she should keep it in check. I worry about my husband's mental health, as this pressure could hurt his chances of passing his medical exam. He's so close to becoming a doctor. And it would be sad if he had to spend his whole life as a security guard after working so hard. Honestly, he's well suited to being a doctor. He's thoughtful and kind. His only flaw might be his gentle nature. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law keeps going around making wild claims, saying things like, "My son makes $373,000 a year," knowing how false that is only adds more pressure on him. One time, I gently told my mother-in-law, "I think it might be better for his patients if you didn't talk so much about John's job. It could cause problems. After all, would you want to see a doctor whose mother is always bragging about him when you're sick?" She didn't care. She snapped back, "Shut up, you're just a nurse. You should be grateful you even got to marry a doctor. It's luckier than winning $3 million. Money can't buy status, you nursing school graduate." She often threw insults like that at me. I just replied politely, "Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you for letting me marry John. I respect him as a doctor and as a person, so please, just leave him alone." She scoffed, "You're so annoying. We can still make him divorce you and find someone better. It would be awful if our grandchild inherited your low IQ." Her words were beyond rude, almost a violation of my rights, but I stayed quiet. Compared to the importance of my job, helping patients, her mean comments seemed small, so I didn't take her seriously. Still, this attitude continued. And then one day, something unexpected happened. My in-laws live about 30 minutes away by train, so we don't visit much, and with my busy work schedule, I don't see them often. This distance helped keep up the lie that John is already a doctor, but for whatever reason, maybe she was bored or impatient, my mother-in-law suddenly showed up at our house unannounced. She looked around and sneered, "What a cramped house. Why does my amazing son have to live in such a poor place?" As she looked at a row of medical books on our shelf, she narrowed her eyes and muttered, "Well, he is my son after all," then snapped a photo with her phone. I felt a bit nervous because most of the books were for the national medical exam, including the ones for this year, which could give away that he's still a student. I felt my heart racing, but I did my best to stay calm and not let my mother-in-law see my anxiety. I apologized, saying, "I'm sorry, we're both very busy with work, so we haven't had time to look for a bigger place, especially lately." I hoped she'd take the hint to go home. Instead, she started going through our things. "What's with these cheap dishes?" she scoffed. "If you're a doctor, you should be buying Wedgwood." "Yes, I'm sorry," I replied, "they're from the dollar store." "Dollar store? I'm throwing these away," she said, ignoring me. I tried to explain that we were cutting costs on non-essentials like dishes, because we were putting our money toward John's textbooks and tuition. As long as the plates could serve food, that was good enough for us. Right now, passing the medical exam was our priority. Luckily, John was at work as a security guard at the hospital. I didn't want him to see this, so I hoped to get her out before he came back. But she didn't stop there. She went on to criticize everything. "These clothes look like a student's," she said, tossing out my husband's favorite shirts. "If you're a doctor, you should be wearing high-end brands." Then she found his watch. "This old thing? A doctor should have a luxury watch." She threw away his smartwatch, not realizing it was useful for his work. One by one, she tossed out his belongings, things he'd bought with the little money he had. Each item represented his hard work, his pride, and his dreams of becoming a doctor, but she didn't see that. Finally, she sneered, "This is what happens when you marry a poor girl. No wonder you live like this, even though he's a doctor." My mother-in-law looked around and sneered, "It's shocking you don't live in a luxury apartment. I was hoping we could go shopping, and maybe you'd at least buy me a designer bag." Her expectation was outrageous, so I tried to gently clarify the reality of our life. "Mother-in-law," I said, "I don't mean to be forward, but he's not extravagant. We actually like our simple lifestyle." But she didn't care. "You're so annoying. Do you know how hard he worked to get into medical school? We've been waiting to get back what we spent on his education, and it's your fault that we're still waiting." She kept getting angrier, rummaging through every part of our home, tossing out anything she thought was too cheap. Then she opened some clear cases where we kept our utility bills, mail, and other documents. That's when she found the pay stubs. They showed $750.25, clearly marked with my husband's name. Either she didn't notice or didn't read carefully, but she started yelling. $750? Are you kidding me?" she shrieked. "A nurse making only $750? That's not what a doctor should be earning. Even an anesthesiologist makes that in a day, and you call yourself a nurse? What a joke, you must barely be working." She spiraled into anger, accusing me of living off my husband's money, deceiving him, and being a part-time nurse just for show. In reality, that $750 was what he earned from his shifts as a security guard, working in the gaps between studying, enduring tough shifts, while watching younger doctors pass him by. It wasn't a lot, but every bit helped us get by. But my mother-in-law didn't stop. Her anger only grew until she finally shouted, "You're a bad luck wife. Get divorced already." Just then, the front door opened. My husband had come home from his shift. He froze when he saw his favorite clothes and his watch, tossed carelessly into a trash bag. My husband quietly began picking up his belongings that had been thrown into the trash, one by one, but my mother-in-law interrupted him. "John, I don't mean to be harsh, but you need to divorce this wife of yours. With your high education, high income, and nearly 6 foot height, why did you choose such a pathetic woman? She only earns $750. He stayed silent, his lips tightly pressed, not showing what he was feeling. My mother-in-law continued, "I'll bring the divorce papers. Leave this dusty little place and this woman who smells like disinfectant, and find a better wife. You're a doctor, after all." Finally, my husband stood up and spoke. "Mom, I've been quiet about this, but I'm not a doctor yet." She was stunned. "What are you talking about?" He explained, "I'm sorry for hiding it, but I haven't passed the national exam yet, and that $750 on the pay stub, That's my part-time job salary. My mother-in-law looked shocked and turned to me in confusion. What is he talking about? Isn't that your pay? I saw there was no point in hiding anymore. No, it's not mine, I said. He continued. It's true, I failed the national exam twice, and I've been working as a security guard. My mother-in-law, stunned by the revelation, suddenly became unsteady. As she backed up, she slipped on some newspapers she'd scattered while going through our things and fell. She didn't hit her head, but she did put out her arm to catch herself, and we heard a snap. It was a fracture. My husband and I quickly treated her and took her to the hospital. Once she was settled with an orthopedic doctor, my husband told her, "Mom, I'm sorry, but please don't come to our house anymore, and don't think of me as your son anymore." She was shocked, but he continued, "I tolerated your bragging, even felt guilty for lying, but insulting the money I worked hard to earn was too much. I'm not studying to brag about a salary. We have very different values, and it's best we cut ties." My mother-in-law, whose main purpose in life had been boasting about her doctor son, was devastated. Since then, she's mostly stayed home, embarrassed to face the neighbors. Later that year, my husband passed the medical licensing exam. Though he was a bit older than the usual resident physician, he finally started working as a doctor. He worked with kindness, even bringing tea to the security guards. Our life became peaceful and happy. If my mother-in-law had just waited a few more months, she would have seen him in his white coat, fulfilling her dream, but she brought her troubles upon herself.
On the chilly, bright morning when my parents' will was to be read, the sunlight streamed through the mahogany-paneled windows of the Albert and Associates law office. I sat in a quiet corner, observing my brother Bruce as he confidently walked around the room in his impeccably tailored suit, exuding a sense of ownership over everything he laid eyes on, a sentiment not far from the truth. Miss Lisa Martin, our lawyer, interrupted my thoughts with her clear, steady voice. "Are you ready to proceed?" she asked. I nodded, my hands tightly gripping the arms of the leather chair. At 34, I was about to discover how my parents truly felt about me, though years of being compared unfavorably to Bruce had already given me a pretty solid idea. Mr. Albert, the senior lawyer, adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses and began reading the will. "To our son Brandon, for his unwavering commitment to our family business and for upholding the Martin legacy," he began. The assets he listed were staggering. The family estate in New Hampshire, our summer home in West Haven, the controlling shares of Martin Industries, and a portfolio worth millions. With each item mentioned, Bruce's smirk widened. Then it was my turn. "To our daughter, Lisa," Mr. Albert said, pausing to shuffle his papers. Silence filled the room. "We leave the painting, Autumn Twilight, currently hanging in the study of our main residence." Bruce's laughter broke the silence, clearly amused by the disparity in our inheritances. "A painting?" My voice was a mere whisper. "It was your mother's favorite," Mr. Albert added, his discomfort apparent. Bruce walked over, placing his hand on my shoulder with a firmness meant to subdue. "Don't worry, sis. I'll make sure you get a good position at the company. Maybe in the mailroom," he sneered. I shrugged off his hand and stood up. The vast Martin family fortune, accumulated over 3 generations, now belonged entirely to my brother. All I had was a single painting, a piece my mother had cherished from a small gallery, beautiful in its depiction of a forest at dusk, with odd geometric shapes hidden among the trees. "Is that all?" I asked, hope dwindling. Mr. Albert nodded with sympathy. "The painting must be collected within 6 days." I left the office without another word, ignoring Bruce's taunting calls. Driving to my parents' house, now solely Bruce's, I was waved through by the guards with suspicious looks. Inside, the housekeeper, Nancy, met me with tears and a tight embrace. "Oh, Miss Lisa, it's not right, what they did to you." Nancy had often been more of a maternal figure to me than my mother had. Together, we carefully removed the painting from the wall. "Your mother would stare at this for hours," Nancy shared quietly, her voice thick with emotion. "Especially in her last months, she'd mutter about numbers and patterns. We thought it was just the illness speaking." Back in my modest apartment, I hung the painting on the living room wall. Its intricate detail and the mysterious geometric shapes, which seemed to shift and change in the dimming light, captivated me. Nancy's words echoed in my mind, prompting a closer examination of the patterns. Tracing the shapes, I wondered about the secrets they might hold, secrets that perhaps only my mother knew and now, perhaps, I was meant to uncover. The painting hung there, out of sync with its natural surroundings, almost as if it was trying to communicate with me. Settling into my couch with a glass of wine, I pondered over the painting, my mother's last gift. Was it a mere taunt, a stark reminder that I would never be on par with my brother Brandon? Or did it hold a deeper meaning? My phone vibrated with Brandon calling yet again. I dismissed it as I had done several times before, suspecting he was either flaunting his success or perhaps mockingly offering me a trivial job at his company. Instead, I turned to my laptop and delved into research about the painting, Autumn Twilight by Arthur. There were no significant exhibitions or sales records. The artist was virtually unknown, and the gallery where it was purchased had long shut down. The artwork seemed to have materialized from thin air. A text from Brandon flashed on my screen, urging me to work with him as our parents would have desired. But what they really wanted was for me to emulate Brandon, focused on profits and not my passion for art history and restoration. By choosing my path, I had disappointed them, or so it felt. Yet something about the painting captivated me. Those peculiar shapes in the artwork reminded me of steganography, a topic I had explored in my art restoration studies, which involves concealing messages in plain sight. Intrigued, I examined the painting closely. The geometric shapes subtly differed in color from their surroundings, almost imperceptible unless intentionally sought out, forming a discrete pattern. Suddenly, a knock at the door startled me. It was past midnight. Peering through the peephole, I saw Brandon, his usually immaculate hair in disarray, calling out for me to discuss the painting. I remained silent, observing him. His sudden interest in a piece of art, especially at such an odd hour, was out of character. "Lisa, please," he sounded desperate, a tone unfamiliar to me. He mentioned that our mother had left instructions regarding the painting. My pulse quickened. Perhaps my instincts about the painting hiding something were not so far-fetched. I refused him entry, reminding him that the painting was the only thing I received. Unfazed, he demanded the painting, offering $10 million for what he had earlier scorned. Backing away, I realized the gravity of the situation. Brandon was not known to be frivolous with money. If he was willing to pay so much, the painting had to hold significant value. I heard him tamper with the lock. Did he still have the spare key? Quickly, I secured the painting and locked myself in my bedroom just as the front door opened. "Lisa!" Brandon's voice echoed through the apartment, his footsteps growing louder. Clutching the painting, the shapes seemed to subtly glow under the dim bedroom light, revealing a sequence of numbers intricately woven into the forest scene, a secret visible only to those who knew where to look. Brandon's pleas grew more urgent, emphasizing the unimaginable worth of the painting. Amidst the tension and fear, I held the painting closer, determined to uncover its mysteries, aware that whatever secrets it held could change everything. I flipped the painting over, closely inspecting its reverse. The canvas was expertly attached, yet something about the frame seemed amiss. There was a slight gap that caught my eye. As I stood in my bedroom, the door handle rattled violently. "Lisa, open this door right now." Brandon's voice thundered from the other side. With hesitant, trembling fingers, I pried at the gap. A small piece of paper slipped out, penned in my mother's elegant handwriting. As I began to read, my breath hitched. "My dearest Lisa, if you're reading this, then you've uncovered what I always hoped you would. You see patterns others overlook and question the norms others accept. Now, my darling girl, you're about to understand why your father and brother have always feared your potential." The banging on the door intensified, but it became mere background noise as I absorbed the words of my mother. My hands shook as the letter unfolded truths that would alter everything. The cryptic numbers within the painting were not mere decoration. They were coordinates, account details, and passwords to secrets that could topple the foundation of Martin Industries. Unbeknownst to Brandon, who was still causing a racket outside, His seemingly stable world was on the brink of collapse. I wasn't sure how long I sat on the floor of my bedroom, poring over the letter again and again while Brandon's tirades continued outside. The numbers in the painting, combined with the access codes provided by my mother, would lead me to a revelation about Martin Industries, a corporate empire my father and brother had erected on stolen innovations, pilfered patents, and designs taken from unsuspecting geniuses. My mother, a brilliant mind herself, counted among those betrayed. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from my living room. Brandon had escalated his efforts. "I'm calling the police," I declared, already dialing 911. "Go ahead," Brandon retorted. "I'll tell them you've stolen company property. That painting belongs to Martin Industries." But armed with the letter, I knew the deeper truth. My mother had cleverly concealed her groundbreaking work in plain sight all these years. The painting wasn't merely an artistic piece. It was the key to unlocking a hidden trove of evidence. The letter detailed further instructions. "The coordinates will guide you to my private laboratory," it read. "Everything you need is there, but be wary, Lisa. Your father and brother will stop at nothing to keep their secrets buried." As Brandon's footsteps faded, followed by the slamming of my front door, I took a deep breath and stepped out of my bedroom. My apartment was in disarray. Brandon had searched it thoroughly in his quest for the painting, but my focus was elsewhere. First, I meticulously photographed every aspect of the painting, especially the geometric shapes that hid the critical coordinates. Then, I transcribed the coordinates from my mother's letter. According to her, these shapes need to be overlaid in a specific sequence to decode the full set of access codes. My phone buzzed once more, a message from Nancy, our former housekeeper. "Miss Lisa, men are at the house removing all your mother's belongings. They're searching for her study. Please be careful." They were destroying evidence, and I had to act swiftly. The coordinates pointed to a location in the Berkshires, about 4 hours from the city. My mother had bought this property secretly under her maiden name, keeping it hidden from my father and brother. Her letter explained, "The lab is underground, disguised as an old storm cellar." As the implications of her words sank in, I prepared for what was likely to be a transformative journey, both literally and figuratively. Knowing the stakes, I set out to unravel the mysteries my mother left behind, ready to challenge the corrupt foundation of my family's empire and step into the role she envisioned for me, as her rightful successor. As my father issued his ultimatum, I prepared my countermove, recalling the final piece of guidance hidden in my mother's letter. The lab, designed with state-of-the-art security systems, required a sequence of numbers from the painting to enter. Packing swiftly, I grabbed my laptop, the securely wrapped painting, some clothes, and the letter. As I left for my car, I noticed a black SUV parked across the street, its engine humming ominously. Clearly, Brandon was not yet finished with his schemes. The journey to the Berkshires was fraught with tension. The SUV shadowed me persistently for the first hour. Determined to shake them, I veered onto every detour and back road I could find, finally losing them near the Massachusetts border. By the time I arrived at the coordinates, dawn was breaking. The site appeared desolate at first, a sprawling field overgrown with weeds and an old farmhouse in disrepair. Walking the property, I compared the geometric shapes in the painting with the surrounding landscape. My mother's brilliance was undeniable. The shapes were not random but a detailed map. Trees and rocks aligned perfectly with the patterns in the painting, leading me directly to an old storm cellar. The rusted doors, when approached with the first sequence of numbers, swung open smoothly, revealing a staircase descending into darkness. Inside, motion sensor lights flickered to life as I descended, the air growing cooler with each step. At the bottom, another keypad required the second sequence of numbers from the painting. The door opened to reveal a laboratory that seemed otherworldly, pristine white walls, state-of-the-art equipment, and rows of computers softly humming in the background. My attention was immediately drawn to a wall displaying patents and prototypes, each bearing my mother's distinct signature. These were not just similar to Martin Industries products, they were the original designs. It became clear that my mother was not merely a contributor to the company, but its true, Hidden genius. A familiar voice behind me snapped me back to reality. Turning around, I was confronted by my father, alive and well, with Brandon smirking beside him. "Impressive, isn't it?" my father remarked, his presence as shocking as the day we had thought he died. "Did you really think your mother was the only one who knew about this place?" he continued, stepping into the lab. It dawned on me then. The revelation of his death was a ruse, a strategy to divert attention and manipulate events. He explained that the will reading had been a trap designed to lead me here. Brandon blocked the exit, his tone smug. "Mom changed all the security protocols before she died. We couldn't get in without the codes." Their plan was clear. They needed me to unwittingly help them access the lab so they could destroy all evidence of my mother's work, ensuring the security of Martin Industries' falsely acquired patents. However, they underestimated my resolve and my preparedness. My mother's letter had foreseen even this scenario, providing an emergency protocol, a sequence of numbers that would activate what she called the Clarity Protocol. As my father and Brandon advanced, threatening to erase my mother's legacy, I backed towards her main workstation. "Actually," I said, my voice steady as I reached behind me to input the sequence, "there's something you should see." As I pressed the final key, the lab transformed. Screens lit up and machinery whirred into action, initiating the protocol designed not just to protect the lab, but to expose their deceit to the world. My mother's foresight had given me the upper hand, a way to honor her legacy and reveal the truth about Martin Industries. The game was far from over. It was just entering its most crucial phase. I couldn't agree to their demands. At that moment, the laboratory's ambience dramatically changed as the lights turned to a pulsating red and a computerized voice echoed throughout the space. Clarity Protocol activated, broadcasting evidence to all major news outlets and regulatory agencies. Deletion impossible. My father's face twisted into an expression of fury. "It's what Mom called her insurance policy," I declared, feeling an inner strength build with every word spoken. The lab had just sent every incriminating document it held, patents, proofs of theft, fraudulent records, flying across digital space to countless secure locations. Martin Industries was on the brink of facing a storm of legal battles and public scrutiny. Brandon made a desperate attempt to advance towards me, but it was futile. Alarms sounded loud, and the lab's security systems sprang to life, sealing every exit. We were trapped together, surrounded by the very evidence that would dismantle their empire. "She knew," I continued, my eyes fixed on their ashen faces. "She knew you'd try to bury her legacy along with her innovations. So, she ensured the truth would emerge, one way or another." Through the lab's small windows, the flashing lights of police cars were visible, drawing nearer. The security system had likely alerted the local authorities. My father and Brandon exchanged looks of sheer panic as the siren's wail intensified. Nearby, the painting that had sparked this unraveling of secrets lay wrapped in blankets by the door. The geometric shapes that many had dismissed as valueless had guided me precisely to this pivotal moment. My mother's last gift was not just a canvas, it was a conduit for justice. Watching my father and brother realize their meticulously crafted world was collapsing around them, I couldn't help but smile. This was merely the beginning. The full story of Martin Industries was about to be exposed, and this time, there would be no shadows to hide within. The next 60 hours were a whirlwind of police interrogations, breaking news updates, and corporate upheaval. From my hotel room, I watched as Martin Industries shares nosedived, each headline unfurling the years of deceit. Martin Industries CEO found alive, arrested for fraud. Corporate empire crumbles on stolen innovations. The hidden genius behind Martin Tech revealed. My phone was incessant, buzzing with calls from journalists, lawyers, and former employees, all eager for my insight. But there was only one conversation I anticipated, that with Nancy, our longtime housekeeper, who had more to disclose. "Your mother foresaw this day," she confided, her voice laden with emotion. "That's why she insisted I give you this after the truth was revealed." An hour later, in Nancy's cozy living room, I opened another letter from my mother. This one contained no instructions or secret codes, but a narrative, her story, her voice. "My dearest Lisa," it began, "now that you know the truth about Martin Industries, it's time you understood your history. You were never inferior to your brother. You were destined for greater things." As I read, the narrative of my life realigned. My mother had not been merely a casualty of my father's machinations. She had been strategizing for this exact moment all along. Those art history classes that my father had dismissed, they had honed my ability to discern patterns and hidden meanings. My work in restoration taught me patience, precision, and how to piece together truth from fragments. Every time your father pushed you away from the business, every time he favored Brandon, he was unwittingly preparing you for this moment, my mother wrote. While Brandon was groomed to perpetuate the lies, you were being shaped to dismantle them. My reading was interrupted by a knock at the door. A woman in a crisp suit stood outside, a briefcase in hand. "Miss Martin, I'm Kathleen from the SEC. We need to discuss your mother's patents." The hours that followed were a testament to the breadth of my mother's preparations, a crash course in the legal battles that awaited, and a profound affirmation of her faith in me. Her foresight had not only set the stage for exposing Martin Industries, but had also prepared me to lead the way in rebuilding from the ashes of its deceit. My mother had done far more than just document the stolen patents. She had continued to innovate in secrecy within her underground laboratory. The coordinates in the painting led to a trove of evidence not only about past thefts, but also about groundbreaking innovations that could revolutionize the industry. Russell, from the SEC, laid out the patents on Nancy's coffee table. "These patents were filed under a trust that names you as the sole beneficiary," he explained. As I sifted through the documents, my hands trembled with the realization that these patents, dozens of them, were all legally protected and now belonged to me. These were not just the old innovations my father had stolen, but new ones, years ahead of anything our current technology could offer. "Martin Industries doesn't just owe you restitution for the stolen patents," Russell continued. "They've built their entire business model around your mother's technology. They can't function without it. What does that mean for me?" I asked, though I was starting to grasp the full implications. "It means, Miss Martin, that you now effectively control the company that cast you aside," he replied. While my father and Brandon were in jail awaiting trial, I walked into Martin Industries headquarters the next morning not as the overlooked daughter, but as its new owner. The board of directors, desperate to salvage what was left of the company, had no choice but to accept my leadership. In my father's former office, I discovered another secret, a wall safe hidden behind a painting. The combination was the final sequence of numbers from my mother's painting. Inside the safe was a personal diary detailing every innovation he had stolen and every inventor he had wronged. More importantly, it contained a list of names, people like my mother, who had been deprived of their rightful recognition. 2 months later, I stood on a stage at a hastily organized press conference, announcing the company's new direction. Martin Industries was built on stolen dreams. I addressed the crowd. "Today, we begin to make amends. We are establishing a foundation to compensate every inventor wronged by the previous management. But we're doing more than that. We're transforming this company into what it should have been from the start, an incubator for innovation, where brilliant minds are celebrated, not exploited." The painting that had ignited this profound change now adorned the wall of my new office, serving as a reminder that sometimes the most valuable treasures are hidden in plain sight. The geometric shapes that once concealed my mother's secrets now symbolized something entirely different, a blueprint for a brighter future built on integrity rather than deceit. Brandon wrote to me from prison, his letters oscillating between threats and pleas for help. I responded with a single photograph, the painting, now occupying the spot where our father's portrait once hung. He would understand the symbolism. His era of deception was finished. My father chose to remain silent, but it no longer mattered. The truth he had fought so desperately to suppress was now his enduring legacy. Liam Martin would be remembered not as a visionary businessman, but as a thief who had stolen his own wife's genius. One evening, as I prepared to leave the office, Nancy handed me one last letter from my mother, timed to arrive a month after the transformation began. "My darling Lisa," it read, "if you're reading this, you've done more than expose the truth. You've started to rebuild from the ashes of deception. I never wanted you to inherit a corrupt empire. I wanted you to have the chance to create something honest, something worthy of your heart." As I traced my fingers over her handwriting, I felt a deep connection to her, more than ever before. The seemingly worthless painting had been anything but. It was the key to unraveling a web of lies. More importantly, it was my mother's way of passing on her vision for a better world. 3 years later, Martin Industries, now rebranded as Aurora Innovations, had transformed entirely. We had become technology leaders, revered not just for our innovations but for our ethical business practices. Aurora Innovations was a testament to what could be achieved when integrity led the way, a legacy of truth and vision inspired by my mother's genius and courage. Through ethical business practices, our foundation has aided numerous inventors in reclaiming their stolen innovations, while our incubator program has kickstarted many new careers. The geometric painting in my office, a comforting presence, seems to subtly shift shapes at night, as if my mother is still guiding me to new discoveries and hidden truths. The most crucial insight: success rooted in deception will eventually fail, whereas success grounded in truth and justice endures, was always visible, yet overlooked. Last week, Brandon was released from prison. He reached out, hoping to discuss our family's future. I haven't replied yet, choosing instead to focus on new beginnings. Our company's annual innovation fair encourages young inventors to present their ideas safely, free from theft. Last year, a brilliant yet underrated young woman won. As I awarded her, I saw my mother's painting in the reflection of the glass trophy, its shapes dancing as if in approval. Once considered worthless, this painting has imparted priceless lessons about my past and empowered me to shape my future. It serves as a safeguard, ensuring that no brilliant mind is ever silenced or robbed. I believe this legacy would bring my mother more pride than any wealth could ever offer. The rich, dark walls of my father's study felt like they were closing in around me. Everything in the room smelled of power. Old books, expensive wood, polished leather. He signed the papers with a quick, sharp motion. The scratch of his expensive pen sounded louder than it should have, like it was dragging across my heart instead of paper. "There," he said, sliding the stack across the desk toward me. "It's done. The full $5 million from the trust fund will go to Teresa." Just like that, I was erased. My name is Anna Smith. I'm 30 years old, and today my family decided I was no longer one of them. My sister, Teresa, stood by the window, half turned away, trying to hide the smirk playing on her lips. She didn't speak, but the victory in her eyes said enough. My mother sighed from the big leather chair behind me like she'd practiced the scene in her head. "If only you had followed a more traditional path, Anna. If you had just gone to law school like Teresa. If you had just applied yourself." "I did apply myself," I said softly. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. I already knew what was coming. I watched my father's face tighten in frustration. "Playing around with computers in your little apartment isn't applying yourself," he snapped, standing up so fast his chair scraped back. "Your sister is a partner at Williams and Edwards at 33. And you build websites for cafes and dog groomers. You live in a shoebox in the city. That's not a future. That's a hobby." I could have stopped him right there. I could have told him about the company I'd built from scratch. The financial tech platform quietly gaining attention in Silicon Valley. The platform used smart algorithms to help small investors make smarter decisions, something no one else was doing quite like us. I could have told him about the meeting I had next week, actually tomorrow now, with investors ready to write checks in the tens of millions. The fact that we'd just closed our Series A and were already being valued at $450 million. But I didn't. I knew it wouldn't matter. My parents only saw success if it came in a tailored suit and a corner office. At the end of your name. You're right, I said calmly, standing. I'm not what you wanted me to be. Teresa deserves the money. Teresa flinched. Just a little. For a split second, I saw a flash of the sister I used to know, the one who used to sneak into my room with cookies when I had nightmares. The one who helped me cheat on math homework and told me I was smarter than anyone gave me credit for. Anna, she started, but I held up a hand. It's okay, Teresa. Really? Congratulations on making a partner. You earned it. As I turned toward the door, my mother called after me. Won't you at least join us for dinner? Your father made reservations at Le Bernardin to celebrate. I paused at the doorway, taking one last look around the study. Every inch of the walls was covered in framed law degrees, awards, and courtroom photos. All belonged to my parents and Teresa. Not one picture of me. Not one token of my achievements. It was like I had never existed. I have a meeting, I said, but enjoy the dinner. The car ride back to the city was quiet. Just the hum of the engine and the sound of my thoughts. Strangely, I didn't feel angry. I didn't even feel sad. The money wasn't what I was losing. I had plenty of that now, more than I knew what to do with. What hurt was the message that even after everything I'd built, it still wasn't enough for them. When I got back to my apartment, my phone buzzed. Sophia, CTO, the VC meeting has been moved to tomorrow morning. Are you ready? I stared at the screen for a second, then smiled. Me, more than ready. Let's change the game. Because while my family might have written me off, the world hadn't seen the last of me. Not even close. When I finally got back to my apartment, the small, cramped place my father used to mock, I kicked off my heels and headed straight to my little home office. On the wall, large screens were glowing softly, filled with real-time data from our latest test of the UI system. Numbers scrolled quickly across the displays, each one a sign of another successful prediction. Every update was proof that what we had built was working. The computer games my father used to laugh at had turned into something real, something powerful. We had created aita, adaptive trading heuristics and neural analytics, a system that could forecast stock market movements with a level of accuracy no human trader could ever match. It processed millions of data points in seconds, spotting trends and patterns hidden deep in the noise. Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from my sister, Teresa. Sorry about Dad. You know how he is. The trust fund doesn't matter anyway, right? You're doing fine with your computer stuff. Even her attempt at being supportive felt like another subtle jab. Computer stuff. Like it wasn't serious. Like it wasn't changing the entire financial world. I stared at her message for a moment before replying simply, Thanks, Teresa. Enjoy your dinner. I turned my attention back to the pitch deck for tomorrow's meeting with potential investors. The results from our beta testing were incredible. ATA had outperformed traditional trading algorithms by 40%. Word was already spreading. Some of the biggest banks were quietly reaching out to us, trying to secure early access. Just then, a soft chime echoed through the room. A video call from Sophia. Her face appeared on one of the screens, but she didn't look like her usual upbeat self. Hey, she said. How'd it go with the family? I sighed and ran my fingers through my hair. As expected, Dad signed the trust fund over to Teresa. They're probably celebrating at Le Bernardin right now. Sophia shook her head. Their loss. Are you ready to show those VCs what real success looks like tomorrow? I nodded, pulling up another screen filled with fresh test results. Actually, I've been thinking, what if we don't take the VC money? Sophia blinked. Wait, what? Anna, this is a $21 million investment we're talking about. Out of $450 million valuation. That's the problem, I said, sitting up straighter. That's small thinking. Look at these results. We're ahead of the curve. We could go public in a year. If we take their money now, we give up control. But if we wait, we can build something massive. On our terms. Sophia went silent, absorbing it all. Then slowly, a grin spread across her face. You don't want a company. You want an empire. I smiled back. Not just an empire. I want to build something even my father can't ignore. Something that makes the entire financial world take notice. Sophia laughed. You know he's a corporate lawyer, right? If this tech is that groundbreaking, wouldn't he have heard about it already? I shook my head. Sophia, the man still uses a BlackBerry. He thinks coding is what you learn in a weekend class at a community center. He's never even asked what I actually do. And now, it's too late. Well, she said firmly, his loss. So what's the plan? Cancel tomorrow's pitch. No, I said, an idea sparking. We go. But instead of asking for money, we propose partnerships. We don't need their capital. We need access to their networks. If they open the right doors, we'll grow even faster. On our terms. 5 months later, everything had changed. I stood in the center of our brand new office in downtown Manhattan. The space was sleek and modern, full of light from floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the financial district. It was poetic. The very institutions that once dismissed ideas like mine were now eagerly waiting for our tech to launch. Our engineers were heads down, working through the final testing phase of aita. The energy in the room buzzed with focus and anticipation. Anna, Sophia called from across the room. You need to see this. I walked over, coffee in hand, and looked at her screen. The newest simulation results were in, and they were beyond anything we had imagined. Even in our wildest dreams, we never expected this. Athena wasn't just predicting market movements anymore. It was recognizing the events that caused those movements before they happened. I leaned in closer to the glowing data on Sophia's screen, my heartbeat quickening. Is this real? I asked, squinting to double-check the numbers. Sophia nodded, her eyes practically glowing with excitement. Triple verified. Athena picked up patterns from social media posts, breaking news, and subtle shifts in trading behavior. It predicted the Morgan Stanley merger announcement 3 days before it went public. If this had been live trading, I whispered. We'd have made billions, Sophia finished, voice filled with awe. I rubbed my temples, trying to absorb the gravity of it. Did we run this past compliance? That's the best part, she said, pulling up another screen with a swipe. We did. Everything is clean. Athena doesn't use any insider info. All it does is connect publicly available dots, just way better than any human ever could. Right then, my phone buzzed. It was Teresa. Hey sis. Long time. Parents are worried. Dad says your old number doesn't work. Is everything okay? I couldn't help but smile at the irony. Of course, that number didn't work. We had moved out of that tiny apartment months ago. We now operated out of a brand new $55 million office tower, just 6 blocks from Wall Street. But in my family's minds, I was still playing with computers in a shoebox apartment. I'm fine. Just busy with work, I replied. Another buzz. This time it was from Jonathan, our head of legal. SEC meeting confirmed for next week. They're interested in your compliance framework. Interested was an understatement. The moment whispers started about our AI-powered trading system, the SEC had reached out, practically begging for a meeting. They wanted to understand Athena before it made waves in the financial world, and honestly, that was a smart move. Just then, Miss Smith, our receptionist, buzzed through the intercom. Anna, there's a Mr. Williams here to see you. Says he's from Williams and Edwards. My heart jumped. Williams and Edwards. That was Teresa's law firm, one of the biggest corporate firms in New York. Send him in, I said, straightening my blazer and mentally preparing myself. Mason Williams himself stepped through the door. Senior partner. Polished. Silver hair. Sharp suit. The kind of man my father would trust instantly. The kind of man who usually ignored people like me. Miss Smith, he greeted me with a handshake. Thank you for making the time. I hope you'll forgive the surprise visit. Of course, I said, gesturing to the chair across from me. Though I'm curious. How did you even hear about Athena? He smiled, all charm and poise. Let's just say our clients in the financial world are very curious about your work. They asked us to explore possible partnerships. Does my sister know you're here? I asked with a raised eyebrow. His smile froze just for a second. Teresa? No, this is a confidential visit. Though I must admit, I was surprised to learn you're her sister. She's never mentioned you. I gave him a half smile. Let me guess, she never told you she has a sister who plays with computers. He had the grace to look a little embarrassed. She doesn't talk about me much at all. I added, my voice calm. Before the awkward silence could stretch, Sophia popped her head into the room, tablet in hand. Anna, sorry to interrupt, but Goldman Sachs is here for their demo. Williams's expression changed instantly. At the mention of Goldman Sachs, I could almost see him reevaluating everything, my work, my value, even my outfit. I stood. Mr. Williams, I appreciate the visit, but I have another meeting to attend. If your firm is interested in future conversations, feel free to go through our legal team. He stood quickly, smoothing down his blazer. Of course. But Miss Smith, whatever Goldman is offering, we can match it. Williams and Edwards represent half the financial giants in this city. We know people. We open doors. I gave a small nod. We'll be in touch. As he walked out, I couldn't help but feel a quiet satisfaction. The same firm that once ignored my existence was now knocking on my door. And not just knocking, they were trying to compete. We weren't just on the radar anymore. We were on the radar, and this was only the beginning. As I walked through the door, a strange sense of satisfaction washed over me. It wasn't about money. Mr. Williams had gotten that part wrong. This was about rewriting the rules of the game. I looked him straight in the eye and said, "It's not about the money, Mr. Williams. It's about changing everything." He didn't reply, but I could tell he understood. After he left, Sophia shot me a look that was partly annoyed, partly amused. "You enjoyed that, didn't you?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Maybe just a little," I admitted with a grin. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "How long do you think it'll take him to tell Teresa about all this? Considering her firm manages billions in investments?" I shrugged. 10 minutes, tops. Right on cue, my phone buzzed. It was a message from my sister, Anna. "Anna, why didn't you tell me? Mason Williams just walked out of your office, looking like he'd seen a ghost. What exactly are you working on?" I didn't answer. There would be time for explanations and family drama later. For now, we had more important things to do. We were about to give a live demo to one of the biggest names in finance. The Goldman Sachs team was already in our conference room, 5 high-ranking executives in polished suits, trying hard to hide their excitement. Just getting them here had been a huge win. If we could get Goldman on board, it would open every door in the financial world. I stepped to the front of the room and addressed them confidently. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, "what you're about to see will change how markets work forever. But first, I'll need you to sign these NDAs." The morning of our IPO, I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the collar of my tailored Chanel suit. Not that my parents would notice. It could have been from any brand, and they wouldn't know the difference. On my desk sat the Wall Street Journal, the front page plastered with our company's headline. "ATA to launch. Biggest tech IPO of the year. Estimated valuation. $900 million." My phone had been buzzing nonstop for days. First Teresa, then my mom, and finally even my father. All their calls and messages went unanswered. They'd all be at the IPO ceremony anyway. Invitations had been sent out weeks ago. "You ready?" Sophia appeared in the doorway. She had traded her usual hoodie and jeans for a sharp, professional suit. "Born ready," I replied, picking up my presentation folder. "How's 8ENA running this morning?" I asked as we walked out together. "Like a dream," she said. "Real-time predictions with 98% accuracy. The trading floor is on fire. Everyone knows this is going to shake the entire market." By the time we arrived at the New York Stock Exchange, a crowd had already formed. Reporters stood in lines, cameras flashing, their voices echoing through the morning air. I caught snippets of their commentary. Youngest female CEO to ever take a company public. A new era in trading technology. ATNA's AI already has contracts with major banks. Inside the exchange, the air was electric. Our entire team was gathered near the podium. Representatives from top banks and financial giants filled the room. In the front row, I spotted my family. My father's face was full of complicated emotions: pride, regret, confusion, and something else, maybe awe. My mother kept dabbing her eyes, overwhelmed. And Teresa just stared at me as if seeing her little sister for the very first time. "Anna," my father said softly, stepping forward as I walked past. "We had no idea." I looked him in the eye. "No, you didn't. Because you never asked." Before he could say anything else, the president of the exchange called me to the stage. The ceremony was about to begin. I stood at the podium, the trading floor going silent as I began. 4 years ago, I was coding in a tiny apartment. People laughed. They said I was wasting my time playing with computers. They couldn't see the bigger picture. But I wasn't playing. I was building the future. I paused, scanning the room, letting the weight of the moment settle. Today, ATA processes more market data in a single second than Wall Street could analyze in an entire month. We've created something that doesn't just react to the market, it understands it. I looked down at my family. My father's eyes were locked on mine. I saw it now. He finally saw me. "And this," I finished, "is only the beginning." She could predict market movements with almost perfect accuracy, and she did it all while staying within the law and the highest ethical standards. But what truly made her special wasn't just the technology. It was what she represented: the power of believing in your vision, even when no one else does. The IPO ceremony followed tradition: speeches, applause, handshakes, and finally, the ringing of the bell. But the real magic happened when our stock price lit up on the big board. The room held its breath. Then the numbers soared. We had shattered our projected opening. Cheers erupted across the trading floor. People hugged, high-fived, and even cried. At that moment, I wasn't just a CEO of a powerful tech company. I was a founder who had turned a dream into a global force. By launch, my stake in the company was worth over $450 million, more than 100 times the value of the trust fund my father had taken away from me years ago. That didn't matter anymore. I had built something far greater. After the ceremony, my family approached me slowly, almost nervously. Teresa, my older sister, was the first to speak. The calm, polished lawyer was gone. What stood in front of me was just a sister trying to make things right. "Anna, I'm so sorry," she said, her voice shaking. "All this time you tried to explain, but we didn't listen." I gave her a small smile. "Save it," I said gently. "You all saw what you wanted to see." My father cleared his throat. "Princess, about the trust fund." "Keep it," I interrupted. "Teresa earned it. Just like I earned this." I looked around the room, at Sophia, our brilliant team, and everyone who had believed in the vision when it was just an idea written in code, inside a cramped apartment. "Sometimes," I said quietly, "the best thing someone can do for you is not believing in you. Because proving them wrong makes the wins so much sweeter." "But we're family," my mother said softly. "We should have supported you." I nodded, turning back to Sophia and our team. "You're right," I said. "We are family, which is why you're all invited to dinner tonight. I've reserved the private room at Le Brun Arden. I heard it's the perfect place to celebrate success." My father's face twitched with recognition. He remembered that dinner 5 months ago when he dismissed my vision like it was a fantasy. This time, he managed a small, respectful smile. "We'd be honored," he said. That evening, as expensive wine flowed and laughter filled the room, I looked around the table and thought about how far we'd come. Every night spent writing code, while they thought I was just playing with computers. Every meeting they brushed off. Every little win that added up to this moment. My phone buzzed under the table. It was a message from Sophia. "Sophia, stock closed at double our projected value. You're officially a billionaire." I looked across the room at my father, who was trying, awkwardly but proudly, to explain to his country club friends how his disappointing daughter had just built an empire right under his nose. And that's when I realized something important. Success isn't about proving other people wrong. It's about proving yourself right. Teresa pulled me aside, her tone different now. Humble, sincere. "Anna," she said, "I need to tell you something. After Mason Williams left your office that day, I started digging. I looked into everything I could find about ATA. I even started buying stock in every company that partnered with your tech. You believed in me? I asked, raising an eyebrow. I did, she said. Even if I didn't say it. I made enough to pay back the trust fund 10 times over. Good, I smiled. Because I'm going to need a lawyer I can trust for our next expansion phase. Someone who understands both tech and family. Her eyes widened. Wait, are you offering me a job? I'm offering you a chance to be part of something bigger than both of us, I said. So what do you say, sis? Ready to play with computers? The next morning, I walked into the newly renamed ATA Tower. Our logo gleamed at the top of the skyscraper. I passed a young intern sitting in the lobby, typing code during her break. She looked so focused, so full of purpose. She reminded me of myself at the start, back when everyone thought I was just wasting time. Keep at it, I said, stopping beside her. Some of the biggest success stories begin in the smallest apartments. She looked up, and recognition sparked in her eyes. Miss Smith, I read all about you. How you built ATA from scratch. My parents think I'm crazy for choosing programming over law school. I smiled and nodded. That's what mine thought too. Then I walked away, knowing her story was just beginning, just like mine once did. You have a vision. I'll help bring it to life. Hold on to that dream. Remember, the people who doubt you today will be the ones reading your story tomorrow. As I rode the elevator up to my office, I couldn't stop thinking about legacy. Not the kind my father tried to hand me, but the kind you build on your own, bit by bit, line by line, choice by choice. Athena wasn't just changing how money moves. She was showing the world that success doesn't always wear a suit or follow the rules. Sometimes, the most powerful legacy isn't something passed down. It's something you build from the ground up. Living my truth. The story of Sandra Wilson. Growing up as the daughter of Carolyn Wilson was never easy. Every breath I took, every decision I made, felt like it was being watched through a magnifying glass. My father, the powerful CEO of Wilson Industries, had already mapped out my life before I could even speak my first words. Sandra, darling, he would often say in his deep, commanding voice as he adjusted his spotless suit, a Wilson never settles for second best. Our enormous mansion in West Hollywood stood like a monument to that idea. With its 29 perfectly decorated rooms, polished marble floors, and golden chandeliers, it looked like something out of a movie. But to me, it felt cold, like a beautifully decorated prison. Every inch of it whispered expectations I didn't ask for. By the time I turned 27, I had become everything my parents wanted. I had a degree from Harvard Business School, a high-paying job as a junior executive at Wilson Industries, and a diamond ring from Jeffrey Robinson, heir to Robinson Technologies. He was chosen by my father, of course. Everything about our relationship was a business deal dressed as love. There was just one problem. I was deeply, hopelessly, and completely in love with someone else. It all started on a rainy Tuesday morning. My sleek red Ferrari broke down on my way to work, leaving me stranded by the side of the road in designer heels. That's when Donald Lewis pulled up in an old, beat-up tow truck. He stepped out wearing jeans and a flannel shirt, his smile more comforting than any luxury brand I'd ever worn. "Looks like your timing belt's gone," he said gently, wiping his hands on a rag. "I can fix it, but it'll take a few hours." Something about his honest eyes and kind voice made me stay. Instead of calling a ride, I waited at his small, cozy garage, sipping awful vending machine coffee and talking about everything and nothing. Donald wasn't just a mechanic. He had graduated top of his class in engineering but turned down fancy office jobs to do what he loved, working with his hands and helping people. "Life's too short to live someone else's dream," he told me with a small laugh, his eyes full of passion. Those words hit me like lightning. For the first time in my life, someone had said exactly what I'd been feeling but didn't dare to say out loud. One cup of coffee led to another. Then dinners. Then long drives along the coast and quiet picnics in hidden parks. Donald never cared about my last name or the millions in my family's bank account. He made me feel seen, heard, and most importantly, free. Around him, I could laugh loudly, speak honestly, and simply be me. For 8 months, I lived 2 lives. By day, I was the perfect daughter and fiancée, smiling at fundraisers and board meetings. By night, I was Sandra, the real Sandra, falling more and more in love with a man who knew my soul better than anyone. But I knew the truth couldn't stay hidden forever. The moment everything changed came during a fancy charity gala at our mansion. My mother showed me off like a trophy, and Jeffrey, ever the businessman, rambled on about mergers and profits. Then, in front of a crowd of socialites, my mother made an announcement. After the wedding, Sandra will be in charge of our East Coast operations. The Robinsons and Wilsons together. Just imagine the power. Her words echoed through my head like a cage door slamming shut. I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was drowning. I slipped away into the garden, my hands shaking as I pulled out my phone and called Donald. I can't do this anymore, I whispered through tears. I can't marry him. I can't live this lie. There was silence on the other end of the line, and then his calm voice came through. Then don't, he said simply. Be who you are, Sandra. That's the woman I fell in love with. That night changed everything. The next morning, I packed a small bag. I left behind the mansion, the company, the engagement, and all the expectations that never truly belonged to me. I didn't know exactly what the future would look like, but for the first time, I knew one thing for sure. It would be my future. One I chose. One built not on pressure or legacy, but on truth, love, and the quiet power of being myself. I stood outside my father's study, heart thudding against my chest like a warning drum. My hand hovered over the doorknob, shaking slightly. I was terrified, but I knew I had to do this. No more hiding. No more pretending. When I finally walked in, the room smelled of old books and expensive cigars, the same way it always did. My father sat behind his massive mahogany desk, surrounded by leather-bound books and trophies of a life built on control and success. Daddy, I said, my voice trembling but my back straight, I need to talk to you. He glanced up from his papers, eyebrows raised. I can't marry Jeffrey, I blurted out. I'm in love with someone else. The silence that followed felt endless, and then everything exploded. My father's face turned a deep shade of red, then purple. He stood so fast his chair screeched across the floor. A mechanic, he thundered after I told him about Donald. My daughter? A Wilson. Throwing her life away for a grease monkey? He's not just a mechanic, I said firmly, though my hands were shaking. He's an engineer. And he's smart. He's kind. He makes me happy. But my father wouldn't hear it. You will marry Jeffrey as planned, he snapped, slamming his fist onto the desk so hard that a framed photo tipped over. Or you can forget the trust fund, your job at the company, everything. Is that clear? I stood taller than I'd ever stood before. I looked my father in the eye, and for the first time in my life, I didn't back down. Crystal clear, I said. Goodbye, Daddy. Walking out of that room felt like stepping off a cliff. The rest of the house exploded into chaos. My mother sobbed dramatically, begging me to reconsider. The house staff whispered behind closed doors. But I didn't stop. I went upstairs, packed a single suitcase, and walked away from the only life I'd ever known. Donald was waiting for me outside his modest apartment, pacing nervously. When he saw me, his eyes filled with relief and worry. Sandra, he said, are you sure? That's your whole life. Your family, your future. I can't let you give it all up for me. I put my hand on his cheek and kissed him softly. I'm not giving up my life, Donald. I'm finally starting it. The next few months were hard. I moved into Donald's tiny one-bedroom apartment. I got a job as a junior business consultant at a small firm. Nothing glamorous, just honest work. I learned how to budget, how to cook basic meals, and how to navigate a world without endless credit cards and family influence. It wasn't easy, My parents tried everything to bring me back. Emotional guilt trips, angry phone calls, freezing my accounts, canceling my credit cards. They even tried to get me fired from my new job. But none of it worked. If anything, it pushed Donald and me closer. We were in it together, and that made us stronger. When we decided to get married, we chose a small park nearby. There was no designer dress, no grand venue, and no media coverage. Just a simple white gown from a department store, a few folding chairs, and the people who truly loved us. The morning of the wedding, I received a text from my mother. Your father and I will be attending. One last chance to fix this mistake. My heart skipped a beat as I showed the message to Donald. He took my hand gently. It's your call, love, he said. Whatever you want. Despite everything, a part of me still wanted them there. They were my parents, after all. So when I walked down that grassy aisle, barefoot and nervous, my eyes immediately found them. They stood at the back of the crowd. My father looked like he'd bitten into a lemon. My mother clutched a monogrammed handkerchief to her chest, dabbing at her eyes. But they didn't step forward. They didn't join the ceremony. And that was okay. During the casual barbecue reception, no champagne towers or 6-course meals, just burgers and potato salad under the sun, my mother made one final attempt. Sandra, darling, she said, her voice thick with emotion and pride swallowed under desperation. It's not too late.
Come home.
We'll forget all this. I looked around at the friends laughing by the picnic tables, at Donald smiling as he helped a little girl with her soda cup, and at the sky wide and free above us. Then I turned to her. I am home. And I meant it. It's not too late, my father said sharply, cutting straight to the heart of it. Jeffrey would still take you back. Think about what you're throwing away. He didn't try to hide his frustration. He rarely did. This is your last chance, young lady. Stay with this person, he said it like Donald was some kind of disease, and you'll never see a penny of your inheritance. Is that really what you want? To live in poverty? I didn't answer him right away. Instead, I turned and looked at Donald. He was across the park, laughing with a few of our friends, holding a paper plate stacked with food in one hand, still looking devastatingly handsome in a rented suit that didn't quite fit right. He looked so relaxed, so real, so mine. Then I turned back to my parents, dressed in their perfectly tailored clothes, standing stiffly under the weight of their wealth and expectations. They looked out of place among the folding chairs and barbecue smoke, like royalty who had wandered into the wrong kingdom. What I want, I said calmly but clearly, is to be happy. Donald makes me happy. And if you can't accept that, then maybe we don't need your money. Or you. My father's face turned the same dangerous shade of purple it had the day I told him I wouldn't marry Jeffrey. You're no daughter of mine, he spat, then spun on his heel and stormed off. My mother hesitated, her eyes glassy. For a brief second, I thought she might say something, anything, but she only gave a sad little shake of her head and followed him. As they walked away, Donald appeared beside me and slid an arm around my waist. You okay? He asked gently. I leaned into him and watched the two people who had built my world walk out of it. Never better, I whispered. That was 8 months ago. Donald and I built a life of our own, small, quiet, and filled with love. He kept working at the garage, pouring his heart into every repair job, and started taking night classes toward his master's degree in mechanical engineering. I threw myself into my consulting work, slowly growing a steady list of clients. We watched our spending, used coupons, and chose secondhand furniture with love. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. We were truly happy. But life, as I'd learned, doesn't like to stay still. Something had been different lately. Donald had been distracted, taking odd phone calls, working strange hours, and brushing off my questions with vague answers. I tried not to let my thoughts spiral, but the worry crept in like a shadow. Was I losing him? Was history repeating itself? Then everything changed on a Friday night that started out completely ordinary. I came home early from work, grinning like a fool, holding a bag of takeout from our favorite Thai place. I planned to surprise Donald, maybe eat dinner on the couch, binge our favorite show, laugh until our stomachs hurt. But the apartment was quiet. Empty. On the kitchen counter was a note in his messy handwriting. Working late at the garage, love you. It wasn't unusual. He often stayed late to finish up jobs. But tonight, something felt wrong. The air felt heavy. My gut twisted. I tried calling him. Straight to voicemail. The knot in my stomach tightened. Unable to sit still, I grabbed the food and drove to the garage. Maybe he'd lost track of time. Maybe everything was fine. But when I pulled up, the place was dark. Closed. Donald's old truck was nowhere in sight. I tried calling again. Still voicemail. And then, just as panic was truly beginning to take hold, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number lit up the screen. Mrs. Lewis, please come to 1920 Santa Monica Boulevard immediately. It's about your husband. My heart stopped. Santa Monica Boulevard. That was in the industrial part of town, far from Donald's garage. My hands shook as I typed the address into my GPS and sped through the dark city, worst-case scenarios clawing at my brain. What if he was hurt? What if it was worse? Eventually, I arrived at a sleek, massive building made of dark glass and steel, standing like a fortress in the night. As I pulled in, the front security gate opened automatically. A uniformed guard greeted me at the entrance. Mrs. Lewis, he said respectfully, nodding. Please park here. Take the executive elevator to the top floor. Executive elevator? Top floor? What was going on? I did as I was told, each step heavier than the last. When the elevator doors opened, I found myself in a breathtaking office suite, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a sparkling view of the city skyline. Polished floors, modern furniture, a quiet hum of something important happening just beneath the surface. And there, standing in the center of it all, was Donald. Not in jeans and a grease-stained shirt, but in a tailored suit, smiling, waiting for me. Sandra, he said softly, stepping toward me. I blinked, confused. What is this? What's going on? He took my hands in his. I've been working on something for a long time. Secretly. I didn't want to tell you until it was real. Until I knew I could give you this moment. He gestured around the office. I sold a patent. A big one. For an engine system I designed. A company bought it and offered me a leadership role, stock options, and everything. I signed the deal this morning. I couldn't speak. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to think I was trying to be enough for you, he continued. You already made me feel like I was. But I wanted to do this. For us. I threw my arms around him, tears streaming down my cheeks, laughing and crying all at once. I didn't fall in love with you for your money, Donald, I whispered. I fell in love with your heart. And now, standing in that glittering office above the city, I realized something. I hadn't just chosen happiness. I had chosen right. I stepped into the room, heart pounding in my chest like a drum, hands slightly trembling. The elevator doors slid shut behind me, and I felt like I'd just entered another world. The space was breathtaking, sleek, modern, with high glass windows that overlooked the entire city. Sunlight spilled across polished floors and expensive furniture. At the far end of the room, behind a massive glass desk, stood a man with his back to me. Donald, but not the Donald I was used to. Gone were the faded jeans and oil-smudged t-shirts. In their place was a perfectly tailored navy blue suit that probably cost more than our entire month's rent. His posture was confident, his presence commanding, but when he turned to face me, I still saw him, my Donald. His warm smile was there, though slightly nervous, and when he spoke, it was with that familiar gentleness. Sandra, he said softly, using the nickname only he called me. I think it's time I tell you everything. But before he could take another step, the office doors burst open with the force of a storm. And just like that, my worst nightmare stood in front of me. My father, my mother, and Jeffrey Robinson, still clinging to his arrogance like a bad cologne. What is the meaning of this? My father bellowed, his voice echoing off the walls. His face had already turned that deep, furious shade of purple I knew too well. Security said Sandra came up here. What are you doing in the CEO's office? He growled, glaring at Donald. You're just a mechanic. Donald calmly straightened his tie and stepped forward, his voice steady. "Actually, Mr. Wilson," he said, walking around the desk with quiet confidence, "I am the CEO. Donald Lewis, founder and chief executive officer of Lewis Innovations." Silence dropped over the room like a bomb. My mother stumbled back a step and grabbed the arm of a nearby chair for support. Jeffrey's jaw hung open like he'd forgotten how to close it. And for the first time in my entire life, my father looked lost, speechless. "But you're a mechanic," my mother finally stammered. Donald turned to her, still holding my hand.
"Yes.
I started as a mechanic. I opened a small chain of auto repair shops after college with a loan from one of my professors. That was my first business. But Lewis Innovations is my main work now. We're a technology company focused on electric vehicle batteries. Revolutionary ones." He glanced at me with a soft smile. "All those late nights at the garage? We weren't fixing cars. We were finalizing a prototype that's going to change the way the world drives." My head was spinning. It was so much so fast. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, stunned. Donald looked into my eyes and answered with a quiet honesty that made my heart ache. "Because I needed to know. When we met, I had just been listed on Forbes 32 under 32. Every woman I dated before you only cared about my status, my bank account. But you fell in love with me when you thought I was just a guy with dirty hands and a tow truck. You gave up everything for me. I needed to be sure it was real." Tears welled in my eyes, not from sadness, but from how deeply I was seen. Meanwhile, my father was trying to piece it all together. "Lewis Innovations," he muttered, gears finally clicking in his business brain. "You're the company that just disrupted the EV battery market. The one every major car manufacturer is fighting to work with." Donald nodded. "Our market valuation hit $50 billion. Not quite Wilson Industries territory, but we're catching up." I couldn't help it. I laughed. Loudly. Freely. All this time, they looked down on him. On us. Called him just a mechanic. And he had been quietly building an empire right under their noses. But Donald wasn't done. He turned to face my parents, voice still calm but sharp as steel beneath the velvet. "And now," he said, "I'd like to talk about how you treated your daughter. The woman who, by the way, became one of the largest shareholders in Lewis Innovations the day she married me." My father's face went pale. Wilson Industries has been trying to enter the electric vehicle market for years. A connection to Lewis Innovations would have changed everything. Now that door was slammed shut. "Now see here," my father began, trying to take control. But Donald cut in, his voice like a knife wrapped in silk. "You tried to sabotage her career. You tried to break her spirit. You made her cry herself to sleep more times than I can count." I turned to my father, finally finding my voice. "You always told me that Wilsons never settle for second best," I said, my voice firm and full of fire. "Well, I didn't. I married the most brilliant, kind, and successful man I've ever known." They didn't have a response. Because there wasn't one. I didn't even realize what I was doing at the time. I just followed my heart. Sandra, my mother, stepped forward, arms wide open. Her voice was soft, almost trembling.
"We were wrong," she said.
"We see that now. Please come home." I stood still, my eyes taking in the grand office around me. The polished floors, the high ceilings, the expensive furniture. It was a world I used to think I wanted. Then I looked at Donald, my husband, my partner, the man who never tried to control me, who believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. "I am home, Mom," I said quietly. "But if you want to be part of our lives again, it has to be on our terms. No more trying to control everything. No more games." My father looked like he had just swallowed something bitter. His face twisted, and he struggled to find words. "And what about Wilson Industries?" he finally asked. Donald, calm and collected as always, smiled. "Well, sir, we've actually received a few interesting offers from your biggest competitors. They want exclusive partnerships." But he paused and looked over at me. "Because of the family connection, I thought maybe we could explore something different. If you're willing to talk as equals." That next hour felt like a dream. My father and Donald sat down and spoke like businessmen, two equals at a table. Meanwhile, my mother started fussing over our apartment like it was a crime scene. She didn't waste a second telling us we needed to move somewhere decent. Jeffrey?
He had vanished by then.
Probably off somewhere licking his wounds in silence. Later that night, back in our cozy little apartment, I finally asked Donald the question that had been on my mind for so long. Why did we still live like this? Why the garage? Why this tiny apartment, when you could buy anything you wanted? Donald pulled me close and kissed my forehead. The garage keeps me grounded, he said. It reminds me of where I started. And this apartment, these months with you here, they've been the happiest of my life. We built something real. Something just ours. No money. No fancy names. Just us. Tears welled up in my eyes. I love you, I whispered. You sneaky billionaire. He laughed. I love you, Wilson.
Things changed after that night.
But not in the flashy, dramatic way people might imagine. We did move, but into a simple, modest house, not a mansion. We picked it out together. It wasn't about showing off. It was about finding a place that felt like home. I took a new role, head of a charitable foundation at Lewis Innovations. I used the resources we had to support young entrepreneurs, especially the ones no one else believed in. Donald? He still spends time at his old garage, teaching underprivileged kids how to fix cars and build confidence.
My parents are trying.
Mom still drops hints about grandkids needing trust funds, but Dad has actually started to admire Donald. Their weekly business meetings now often turn into long conversations about classic cars or deep talks about life and philosophy. As for me, I finally get what Donald meant when he said that life is too short to live it on paper. Sometimes the most beautiful parts of life come wrapped in the ordinary. A rusty old car, a cheap coffee machine, a tiny apartment, a greasy garage. These things taught me more about love, strength, and happiness than any luxury ever could. And the best part? Now and then, when we drive past that old apartment or pick up takeout from the little Thai place we love, Donald still looks at me the way he did back then, when he was just a mechanic and I was just a runaway daughter trying to find herself. Because in the end, love doesn't care about bank accounts, last names, or business empires. It only cares about who you are underneath all of that. And we're just Sandra and Donald, a Wilson and a humble mechanic. Not chasing billions, just building something better. We found each other, and that made us rich in the only way that truly matters. Growing up, I had always held on to the faint hope of seeing my parents again after they left me with Grandma Susan when I was just 9 years old. They had dropped me off at her cozy little home with nothing more than a backpack filled with clothes, assuring me they'd return soon after sorting some things out. Be good for Grandma, my mom had said, avoiding my gaze. However, they never returned. Those initial months, without them, were incredibly tough. Each day after school, I would wait by the window, watching every car that passed, hoping it would be them. At night, tears soaked my pillow as I wondered why I wasn't enough for them to stay. But through all this, Grandma Susan was my rock. Grandma Susan was extraordinary, not just as a grandmother, but as a person. Despite being immensely wealthy, she lived simply. She drove an old Toyota and continued working as a high school principal because she loved educating young minds. Her home was filled with exquisite art, and she often spoke of her investments while browsing through financial newspapers. Under her nurturing care, I thrived. She fostered my interest in science, supported me through academic struggles, and celebrated my every small victory. When I won first place in a state science fair at the age of 13, she threw a grand party, proudly proclaiming, "That's my girl. You're going to change the world someday." Our life together was harmonious and fulfilling. She never spoke ill of my parents, ensuring I understood that their absence was not my fault. Sometimes people make choices they can't take back, she would say sagely, teaching me those choices were reflections on them, not on me. Gradually, I stopped wondering why my parents left and focused on the love and support I received from Grandma Susan. Then came my 19 birthdays. Grandma organized a sophisticated celebration at her favorite restaurant, surrounded by friends. She gifted me a delicate gold chain with a small key pendant. "This is more than just jewelry, Doris," she said with a mysterious smile. "Keep it safe. You'll understand when the time comes." Little did I know, this would be our last celebration together. 5 months later, Grandma Susan passed away suddenly from a heart attack. The grief was overwhelming, ripping through me mercilessly. At her funeral, which was as beautiful as she deserved, her former students shared touching stories of her impact. As I sat in the front row, clutching the key necklace, trying to be as strong as she had taught me to be, I saw them, my parents. They walked into the church, as if they belonged, as if they hadn't left their daughter behind all those years ago. My heart seized at the sight of them. As they approached me, with what seemed like concern, my mom reached out for my hand. Instinctively, I pulled back. "We came as soon as we heard. We're so sorry about your grandmother," my dad said with a nod. The years had changed them, but the hurt they left behind was as fresh as ever. Despite a decade of silence, my parents now seemed eager to rebuild a life with me, asserting that since I was still technically a minor for a few more months, they were my rightful guardians. Their sudden desire to act as a family was staggering. "I'm not going anywhere with you," I stammered, my voice quivering with a mix of anger and disbelief. Grandma Susan had been everything to me. They were practically strangers now. "But Doris," my mother's voice hardened, a tone I faintly remembered from my early childhood, "don't be difficult. We're your parents, and you don't have a choice in this matter." However, her declaration was abruptly interrupted by a deep, authoritative voice. "Actually, she does have a choice." We all turned to see a tall man in a sharp suit, carrying a leather briefcase, approaching us confidently. "I'm David Walker, Susan Langford's attorney, and there are some pressing matters concerning your grandmother's will that we need to discuss." The shift in my parents' demeanor was instantaneous. My mother's eyes sparkled with a mix of curiosity and greed, while my father adjusted his tie, clearly unnerved. "Of course," my father responded smoothly, trying to regain composure. "We are her only living relatives, after all." Mr. Walker's expression remained neutral as he guided us into a private room adjoining the church, where the air felt thick with impending revelations. As we sat down, I instinctively touched the key pendant necklace Grandma Susan had given me, sensing its significance more than ever. Once seated, Mr. Walker began to lay out documents meticulously, ignoring the anxious glances from my parents who resembled nothing more than wary predators. Before he commenced, he looked directly at me. "Miss Doris, could you please show me your necklace?" he requested. Puzzled, my parents watched as I lifted the key pendant. Mr. Walker nodded slightly, a small smile appearing on his face, as if a piece had fallen into place. "Perfect," he murmured. "Now, let us review the terms of Susan Langford's will." He cleared his throat and began. "I, Susan Langford, being of sound mind, declare this to be my last will and testament." The formal legal jargon initially seemed to float around the room until one sentence struck me like a bolt of lightning. "To my beloved granddaughter, Doris Frances Langford, I leave my entire estate, including all properties, investments, bank accounts, and business holdings, currently valued at approximately $90 million. The room erupted into chaos. $90 million? My mother shrieked, her face flushed with shock and anger. Impossible. Susan was just a school principal. My father banged his fist on the table, his voice laced with fury. "This is preposterous. We're her children. You can't tell us she left everything to a teenager." Mr. Walker remained composed amidst the storm. "There's more. The will specifies that Doris is to be legally emancipated immediately, with a trust established in her name. The key she wears opens a safety deposit box that contains additional important documents and instructions." As I processed the revelation, the realization that my unassuming, modest, Toyota-driving grandmother was worth $90 million was overwhelming. Last month's will date raised suspicions from my mother. We'll contest it, she hissed. Doris is still a minor. We're her legal guardians. Despite the uproar, a newfound sense of strength began to stir within me. Grandma Susan had not only provided for me in life, but had also empowered me beyond her passing. With this legacy, I felt the weight of her trust and the freedom to shape my future, no longer bound by the past or the sudden whims of those who had chosen to leave me behind. As my parents tried to claim their rights over me and the newfound fortune, Mr. Walker, with a calm yet firm interruption, set the record straight. Actually, he said, pulling out a document with precision, you relinquished those rights 12 years ago. He laid out a copy of the abandonment charges that Grandma Susan had filed against them after they left me. You never responded to the court summons, and full legal custody was granted to her. You haven't been Doris's guardians for a very long time. The mask of concern on my parents' faces dissolved, revealing raw greed and anger. Doris, sweetie, my mother attempted again, her voice unnaturally sweet. You don't understand what you're doing. Let us help you manage this. We're family. The word family stung like venom. Where had this family been when they walked out on me? Where was this family during the decade Grandma Susan raised me with love and dedication? We made a mistake. My father interjected hastily, his tone desperate. We were young and struggling. But we're here now. We can make things right. Make it right. I stood, my whole body trembling with fury. You're only here because of the money. Did you even care that Grandma died? Did you ever actually care about me at all? Their silence was the only answer I needed. Mr. Walker, seeming to sense the need to shift focus, cleared his throat. There's one more thing, he said as he handed me a sealed envelope. Susan left a letter for you, Doris. She asked that you read it alone. Taking the envelope, I excused myself and found a quiet corner of the church. With trembling hands, I broke the seal and unfolded the letter from Grandma Susan. My dearest Doris, if you're reading this, I'm no longer here, and you've just learned about our family's wealth. I know this must be a shock. I kept it a secret for many reasons, primarily to protect you and to let you grow up valuing hard work and kindness over material wealth. Your parents chose money over love, time, and again, they abandoned you because I refused to fund their extravagant lifestyles any longer. In their greed, they gave me the greatest gift of all, you. The key I gave you opens more than just a safety deposit box. It opens the door to your future. I've made arrangements for everything. The house is yours, your college fund is secure, and the family business awaits your readiness. But most importantly, remember this. You are loved for who you are, not for your inheritance. The quiet strength that helped you survive their abandonment will now help you manage this responsibility. Don't let your parents manipulate you. They might try, but you're stronger than they realize. You are a Langford woman, and we don't break easily. All my love, Grandma Susan. Tears streamed down my face as I finished the letter. In death, as in life, Grandma Susan was still protecting, guiding, and loving me. Clutching the key around my neck, a wave of understanding and resolve washed over me. When I returned to the private room, my parents were still arguing with Mr. Walker about contesting the will. They stopped and turned as I walked in. Doris, my mother began, reaching out, but I raised my hand to stop her. I've made my decision, I stated firmly, empowered by Grandma Susan's words and the love she had instilled in me. I was ready to face whatever came next, standing firmly on the legacy and the values she had passed down to me. I want you to leave, I said, my voice steady and unwavering. Both of you, you're not welcome here. My father began to retort, anger flaring in his eyes. Now listen here. But Mr. Walker cut him off smoothly. Should I call security? His calm demeanor was unflappable as he added, as the sole heir and property owner, Doris has the right to have you removed. The realization dawned on their faces. They had lost. Not just the money, but any possibility of influencing my decisions. This isn't over, my mother hissed venomously as they collected their belongings. You'll regret this, she spat out, but her threats felt hollow. I watched them leave, a sense of awed peace settling over me. Once they were out of sight, I turned to Mr. Walker. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now," he replied with a smile, "we visit that safety deposit box. Your grandmother left quite detailed instructions about the next steps. Shall we?" As we left the church, I caught a glimpse of my parents in the parking lot, embroiled in a furious argument. They had chosen money over love once before, and that choice had finally caught up with them. Touching the key around my neck, I smiled. Grandma Susan had given me more than an inheritance. She had bestowed upon me the strength to stand on my own. The safety deposit box at the First National Bank was exactly as Grandma Susan had promised, and much more. Mr. Walker assisted me as I sifted through its contents: property deeds, stock certificates, and meticulous instructions regarding the family business, Langford Investments, a company I hadn't even known existed. But what captured my attention was a USB drive labeled, "Watch Me First." Mr. Walker produced his laptop, and soon, Grandma Susan's face appeared on the screen. She looked healthy and vibrant, clearly recorded just before her passing. "Doris, my darling girl," she began, her familiar smile beaming from the screen and warming my heart. "If you're watching this, then everything has happened as I expected. Your parents showed up at my funeral, didn't they? Trying to claim what was never theirs to begin with." I gasped, astonished at her foresight. Even from beyond, she had anticipated their actions. "You see, Doris, there's something you need to know about your parents," she continued, her tone becoming serious. The video was about to reveal yet more secrets, showing that Grandma Susan's wisdom and protection extended far beyond what I had imagined. The revelations from the video would likely reshape my understanding of the past and guide my decisions for the future. The key around my neck not only unlocked the safety deposit box, but was also the key to unraveling the deeper truths of my family and the legacy left to me. When I played the USB that Grandma Susan had left in the safety deposit box, her image filled the screen, her expression a mix of sorrow and resolve. "They didn't just abandon you, Doris," she began, her voice steady and clear. "Your father, my son, and your mother tried to steal everything from me. While I was away on a business trip, they attempted to transfer all my assets into their names. They underestimated me, thinking I was just a naive school principal. They never knew I was the founder of Langford Investments." She paused, her gaze hardening as she recounted the betrayal. "When I uncovered their scheme, I gave them a choice: stay and learn the value of hard work living modestly, or leave. They chose to leave, abandoning you, thinking I would come begging for them to return. They never realized that in doing so, they were giving up the greatest treasure of all." Tears streamed down my face as Grandma's words sunk in. She continued, "I watched you grow into an extraordinary young woman, kind, intelligent, and hardworking. Qualities they never possessed. That's why I know you're ready for this responsibility." The video then detailed the intricacies of Langford Investments, the properties, and, most importantly, the charitable foundation she had established. "The Langford Foundation provides scholarships to abandoned children," she explained. "You'll be its new director, Doris. Use our wealth to help others like yourself. That's our true legacy." The weeks following were a whirlwind. Mr. Walker introduced me to the company's board of directors, who had all known and respected Grandma Susan. They welcomed me warmly, ready to guide me as I learned to navigate the business. My parents didn't surrender easily. They hired lawyers, contested the will, and even tried to claim Grandma Susan was mentally unstable when she made it. But Grandma had been meticulous. Every document was in order, and every decision was legally sound. Their final attempt to regain control came 5 months later when they caused a scene in the lobby of Langford Investments. "We're her parents," my mother yelled as security restrained them. "She can't keep us out." I faced them calmly, wearing one of Grandma's elegant suits, the key necklace still around my neck. "Actually, I can and I will," I stated firmly. "We'll go to the press," my father threatened. "Tell everyone how you stole our inheritance." I smiled, feeling Grandma Susan's quiet strength coursing through me. "Go ahead. Tell them how you abandoned your 9-year-old daughter. Tell them how you tried to steal from your mother. I'm sure the press will love that story." Defeated, they realized then that they had lost everything, not just the money, but any semblance of dignity or moral high ground they might have claimed. Grandma Susan's foresight and planning had ensured that the legacy and the future of Langford Investments would be in the hands of someone who truly valued it, not for its monetary worth, but for its potential to do good. As I stepped into my new role, I was determined to honor her vision and use the resources she had entrusted to me to change the lives of others, just as she had changed mine. As I watched my parents walk away, possibly for the last time, I felt a firm resolve settle within me. "Goodbye," I said clearly, ensuring there was no ambiguity in my tone. "Don't come back." My fingers instinctively found the key necklace around my neck, a tangible reminder of Grandma Susan's enduring presence and guidance. That same evening, in the quiet sanctity of what used to be Grandma's office, and was now mine, I signed off on the first round of scholarships from the Langford Foundation. 20 children from broken homes were about to receive a chance at a better life, a new beginning much like the one Grandma had given me. Sitting behind the desk, I looked up at her photo hanging on the wall. Her eyes seemed to twinkle back at me with approval and pride. She had left me much more than an inheritance. She had entrusted me with a purpose, strength, and the power to make a difference. The old Toyota still parked in my garage was a daily reminder of that legacy. Despite now having the means to buy any car I desired, that simple, reliable Toyota represented more than just transportation. It symbolized the humble, hardworking ethos of the incredible woman who had raised me. Sometimes, to honor her, I would wear her old principal's blazer to board meetings. Those who had known her nodded in recognition and smiled. They saw not just the echo of Susan Langford in me, but her living legacy continuing through my actions. As for my parents, I heard they had moved to another state. They spent their days recounting tales of their ungrateful daughter to anyone who would listen. However, their words no longer had the power to hurt me. I knew who I was and the values I stood for. I am Doris Frances Langford. Like my grandmother before me, I choose love over money, kindness over greed, and the well-being of others over my own. These choices define me and are the true marks of family and legacy. Each day, as I continue the work of the Langford Foundation, I am guided by the principles that Grandma Susan embodied. In this way, I do more than follow in her footsteps. I strive to extend the path she carved, using the wealth she amassed not to define me, but to uplift those who need it most. That is what real family does, and that is the legacy I aim to leave behind. A call that changed everything. It was a quiet Tuesday morning, and I was just settling into my usual routine, coffee in one hand, checking emails with the other, when my phone lit up. Sarah's name flashed across the screen, and my heart sank a little. Her calls were never pleasant. I took a deep breath and answered, keeping my voice calm. "Hello, Sarah." She didn't bother with small talk. "I've sold the house," she announced bluntly, her voice brimming with smug satisfaction. "The papers are signed. The new owners move in next week. I hope this finally teaches you to respect your elders." My fingers tightened around my coffee mug. The house she was talking about wasn't just any house. It was the home I grew up in. The place filled with memories of my childhood and of my father, who had passed away 3 years earlier. She was talking about his house. My house. The house. I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "You mean Dad's house?" "Don't play dumb, Patricia," she snapped. "You know exactly which house. The one you've been living in like a freeloader ever since your father died. Well, it's over now. I found buyers who actually appreciate the place." I took a slow sip of my coffee, hiding a small smile. What Sarah didn't know was that shortly after Dad's funeral, I had a private meeting with his lawyer, Mr. Anderson. She had no clue about the documents we signed or the true ownership of the house. She thought she had control, but the truth was far more complicated than she imagined. "That's interesting," I said carefully. "And you're absolutely sure everything about the sale is legal?" Sarah scoffed. Of course it's legal. I was his wife. The house was in his name. You may have been his precious daughter, but I have rights too. Maybe next time you'll think twice before questioning my decisions, especially about the remodeling. There it was. The real reason behind this whole power play. For months earlier, I had stopped her from destroying the home's unique charm. She wanted to tear out the hand-carved wooden banisters, rip up the old hardwood floors, and replace the stained glass windows my father had spent years restoring. She wanted to wipe away every trace of him, every detail that made the house special. And I couldn't let that happen. I see, I replied, carefully controlling my tone. Well, I hope you got a good price for it. Don't worry about the price, she snapped. Just make sure you're out by next Friday. The new owners are eager to start their renovations. I could practically hear the triumph in her voice and imagine the smug grin on her face. She pictured me scrambling to pack boxes, desperate and defeated. If only she knew the truth. Thanks for letting me know, I said coolly. Goodbye, Sarah. And with that, I ended the call, knowing full well that the story she believed was about to take a very unexpected turn. I couldn't help but smile. Sarah had always underestimated me, just like she had underestimated my father's wisdom. She believed she knew everything about our family's affairs, that she had outmaneuvered everyone. But what she didn't realize was that there were parts of our story she never understood. I picked up my phone and dialed Mr. Anderson, my father's longtime lawyer. Patricia, he greeted warmly, as though he had been expecting me. I figured I'd hear from you today. She did it, I said, almost amused. She tried to sell the house. Did she now? He replied, with a slight chuckle. Well, this should be interesting. Would you like me to get things started? Yes, please, I said. And Mr. Anderson, make sure the buyers know exactly what's going on. I don't want innocent people getting dragged into Sarah's mess. After hanging up, I slowly walked through the house, my house. I let my fingers trace the walls my father had painted, the door frames he'd repaired with such care, and the cozy window seats where he and I used to sit and read for hours. Every corner of this home held a memory. It wasn't just a structure, it was a living scrapbook of our life together. Sarah had married my father 5 years ago, when I was 24. At first, she played her role well, smiling sweetly, acting like the loving stepmother. But it didn't take long for her mask to slip. She began making snide remarks about how close Dad and I were, suggesting I was too attached or too involved. She pushed constantly to change things in the house, wanting to modernize and strip it of everything that made it ours. Eventually, my father saw through her, but by then his health was already declining. I remember one evening during the last months of his life, he called me into his study. Sarah was out at one of her weekly spa appointments, and he looked tired, his face pale but serious. Pate, he said softly, using the nickname he'd called me since I was little. I need you to trust me. Things aren't what they seem with Sarah, and I've taken steps. When the time comes, go see William Anderson. He'll explain everything. I wanted to ask more to understand exactly what he meant, but he was so weak, and I didn't want to push. 3 weeks later, he was gone. Sarah didn't waste time. Almost immediately after the funeral, she began making her move. She boxed up my father's belongings, sent some to storage without asking, and redecorated several rooms. She walked through the house like she owned it, confident, controlling, cold. She made it clear that she believed everything now belonged to her. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that my father had anticipated this. He had planned for it in meticulous detail. When I met with Mr. Anderson shortly after the funeral, he revealed the truth. Despite appearances, the house was never solely in my father's name. Through careful legal arrangements, he had made sure I was protected. This home couldn't be taken away. Not by Sarah, not by anyone. My phone buzzed with a new message. It was from her. I expect the keys on my desk by Thursday. Don't make this difficult, Patricia. I read the message twice, then typed back with a calm, steady smile on my face. Don't worry, Sarah. Everything will work out exactly as it should. She didn't reply. She probably thought she had won, believed I was finally giving in. But what she didn't realize was that the real show was just beginning. And there I was, with a front row seat to watch Sarah's carefully laid plans fall to pieces. My father had always told me that patience was one of the greatest strengths a person could have. Sometimes he would say with a quiet smile, "The best thing to do is wait and let people show you who they are." Well, Sarah had done just that. She had revealed exactly the kind of person she was. Now it was my turn to show her who I had become. The rest of that morning, I spent in my father's study, flipping through old photo albums he had kept tucked away in the back of a drawer. One picture made me laugh. Dad and I, covered in paint and sawdust, working on the house together, grinning like kids at summer camp. Another showed us kneeling in the garden, surrounded by the rose bushes he had planted and tended with so much care over the years. Those same roses Sarah had once tried to have removed, calling them too old-fashioned. I had stopped her then, and I was about to stop her again now, only this time, she'd never see it coming. Just as I placed the last album back on the shelf, my phone rang. It was Mr. Anderson. "The wheels are officially in motion," he said, his tone businesslike but with a hint of satisfaction. "The buyer's lawyer has been informed. They're upset with Sarah. Understandably so, but relieved they found out before any money was exchanged." "How long do you think until she finds out?" I asked. "By this afternoon, I'd say. Their legal team is preparing a rather firm letter. Would you like me to be there when she gets the news?" I paused, picturing the confrontation. As tempting as it was to watch her reaction firsthand, I shook my head. "No," I said. "Let her handle it on her own. She needs to face this by herself and understand what she's done." "As you wish," Mr. Anderson replied. "But, Patricia, be ready for her response. People like Sarah don't handle embarrassment very well." He was right. Sarah had always prided herself on being the one in control. Being outmaneuvered and exposed, especially in front of potential buyers, would be a deep bruise to her ego. But that was the lesson, wasn't it? She had tried to take something that wasn't hers, and now she'd have to deal with the consequences. I didn't have to wait long. Around 4 p.m., my phone lit up with a storm of missed calls and angry texts. One after another, her messages came flying in, growing more unhinged with each one. "What have you done, Patricia? You lied to me. You ruined everything." The last message was in all caps, filled with fury as if screaming through the screen. I was sitting in the garden when she arrived, my father's garden, filled with the very roses she once wanted to destroy. The scent of them filled the warm afternoon air, and I felt peaceful, surrounded by memories and the quiet strength of knowing the truth was finally out. That peace shattered the moment her Mercedes screeched into the driveway, tires crunching against gravel. She flung the door open, practically leaping out, her face red with rage and disbelief. But I didn't move. I stayed among the roses, exactly where I belonged. She came storming into the garden, heels clicking furiously on the stone path, clutching a crumpled sheet of paper in her hand. Her face, always so polished and composed, was now twisted in rage. The mask she wore so well had finally cracked. "You conniving little witch," she shrieked, waving what I assumed was the lawyer's letter in my direction. "You knew about this all along." I remained seated on the bench beside the rose bushes, the same ones she had once tried to uproot. The warm breeze rustled the leaves, but I didn't flinch. I looked at her, calm and composed, the way my father had taught me to be. "Knew about what, Sarah?" I asked evenly. "Don't play innocent with me," she spat, thrusting the letter toward me. "The trust. The property transfer. All of it. You and that snake William Anderson planned this behind my back." I shook my head slowly. "No." "Dad and Mr. Anderson arranged everything. I only followed his instructions." Her mouth tightened, and the fury in her eyes burned brighter. "Your father would never do this to me. This has to be some kind of mistake." I stood up then, brushing the dirt from my jeans. "Actually, he did exactly this, to protect me and to protect this house. He saw through you, Sarah. He knew what you'd try to do once he was gone." She took a shaky step backward, her expensive heels sinking slightly into the soft garden soil. For the first time, she looked unsure. Scared, even. That's not possible, she whispered. He trusted me. He loved me. Did he? I asked gently. Or did he just let you believe that? Her face paled. The weight of my words hit her like a cold wind. She had spent years thinking she had manipulated her way into control, but the truth was just now beginning to unravel around her. My father wasn't fooled, I continued. He planned all of these years before you ever came into our lives. The house was never fully in his name. He transferred ownership into a trust long ago. I'm the sole beneficiary. You're lying, she muttered, but there was no conviction left in her voice. I could see the cracks forming in her certainty. Look it up, I said softly. The property records are public. Dad made sure everything was clear and legal. He wanted it to all come to light when the time was right. Her hands began to tremble as she crushed the letter in her fist. The buyers, she said, her voice trembling, they're threatening legal action. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is for me? I tilted my head slightly. Almost as humiliating as trying to kick your stepdaughter out of her own home? Or maybe as humiliating as pretending to care about someone just so you could get their money? She recoiled as if I had struck her. Her eyes shimmered, but it wasn't from sadness. It was from shock. You don't understand anything about my relationship with your father. I met her gaze, calm but steady. I understand more than you think. Dad told me everything before he passed. About the prenuptial agreement you refused to sign. About the money missing from his accounts. About the men you met while he was in the hospital. Her eyes widened in disbelief. He knew Sarah. He knew everything. He just waited. He watched. And then he made sure you'd never get away with it. I turned back toward the house, the wind gently rustling the petals of the rose bushes around me. Like father, like daughter. Sarah took another step back, her designer heels now caked in dirt, her expensive suit stained with streaks of garden soil. She looked out of place among the roses, as if the truth itself had rejected her. Her lips curled into a forced sneer. This isn't over, she threatened, but her voice was weak, stripped of its usual edge. Actually, I said calmly, pulling out my phone. It is. Her eyes flicked to the device in my hand, and for the first time, I saw something unfamiliar in her expression. Fear. I've recorded this entire conversation. I continued. Would you like me to send it to Mr. Anderson? He's already building a file on your attempts to illegally sell property that doesn't belong to you. Sarah didn't answer. She couldn't. In all the years I had known her, I'd never seen her this silent. She just stood there, surrounded by the garden my father had loved, looking completely lost, as if the lies she had built her world on were crumbling beneath her. I'll make it simple for you, I said, my voice steady. Leave the house. Leave me alone. And most of all, leave my father's memory alone. If you try anything else, any more games, any more schemes, everything comes out. The affairs, the stolen money, all of it. Her mouth tightened. You wouldn't dare, she hissed. It would destroy your father's name. I met her gaze and felt a calm strength settle over me, the kind of quiet courage I'd always admired in my father. His name can survive the truth, Sarah. The question is, can yours? She stared at me for a long moment, eyes flickering with calculation. Then, finally, her shoulders sagged just a little. Fine, she muttered. Keep the house. Keep your little victory. But don't think this means you've won. I already have, I said simply. I won the day my father saw you for who you really are. Without another word, she turned and stomped toward her car, her heels sinking into the soft lawn with every angry step. As she peeled out of the driveway, I noticed she dropped the lawyer's letter on the grass. I picked it up and gently smoothed out the wrinkles. The legal wording was dense, but the message was clear. Sarah had no legal claim to the house. Never had. Her attempt to sell, it wasn't just bold. It was criminal. My phone buzzed. A message from Mr. Anderson. How did she take it? I smiled to myself as I typed back. About as well as we expected. But I think she's done. A few seconds later, his reply came. Your father would be proud. He always said you were stronger than people realized. I looked around the garden. The roses he had tended for years were in full bloom. bright and alive under the afternoon sun. The house stood strong behind me, the same way he had once stood for me. He had protected it, prepared for this moment long before I even knew it was coming. He had trusted me to finish what he started, and I had. Sarah had tried to teach me a lesson about respect, but in the end, she was the one who learned something. Never underestimate the quiet ones, and never underestimate the plans of the dead. In the weeks that followed, something shifted. The house felt different, lighter, like a shadow had finally lifted. Peace, once buried beneath tension and secrets, had found its way back in. And for the first time in years, I felt truly at home. Every evening, I spent hours bringing the old rooms of the house back to how they used to be, reversing all the rushed changes Sarah had made. She had tried to modernize everything so quickly, but it never felt right. One night, while I was sorting through dusty boxes in Dad's study, something unexpected happened. Tucked under a pile of old papers, I found an envelope with my name on it, written in my father's familiar handwriting. My heart started to race. The date on the envelope was just a few days before he passed away. With trembling hands, I opened it. "My dearest Pate," it began. "If you're reading this, then things have unfolded the way I thought they would. By now, Sarah has probably tried to take control of the house, and you've likely discovered the legal arrangements I made with William. I'm so sorry I couldn't explain everything to you while I was still alive. Sarah was always watching, and I needed her to believe she had won." My eyes filled with tears as I read on. You see, I started to see Sarah for who she was about a year after we got married. But by then, it was too late. She had already started showing her true colors. Do you remember when I got sick and had to go to the hospital? It wasn't just some unexplained illness. After noticing the dizziness, the forgetfulness, and the growing weakness, I asked William to look into it.
What he found was horrifying.
Sarah had been putting something in my tea every night, not enough to kill me quickly, but enough to slowly wear me down and make it look like I was just getting older. I paused, shocked, my breath catching. I had to pretend I didn't know. I let her think she was getting away with it. But while she was playing her game, I was making plans to protect you and everything we built together. This house is more than just a place to live, Pate. It's part of our history. Every wall we fixed, every floorboard we replaced, it was all part of our life together. I know it must have been painful watching me spend so much time with her in the end and seeming to choose her over you. Please forgive me. I needed her to feel in control, so she wouldn't suspect what I was really doing. There's something else I need you to find. In the study's fireplace, there's a loose brick. Behind it is something important. Remember this, my sweet girl. Being strong doesn't always mean fighting. Sometimes, strength is in waiting, watching, and choosing the right time to act. I love you always, Dad. I sat still for a long time, tears running down my face, soaking the paper. So many things finally made sense. His strange behavior, the cryptic things he said in those last months, the way he insisted on having tea alone with Sarah every night. He wasn't being distant.
He was protecting me.
I got up and walked to the fireplace. My fingers quickly found the loose brick, and behind it, hidden in the shadows, was a small USB drive and another note. "When you're ready," the note read, "show this to the police." I plugged the drive into my laptop with shaking hands. The files it contained left no doubt. Videos from hidden cameras Dad had set up showed Sarah clearly, adding something to his tea, having secret meetings with men I didn't recognize, and making phone calls where she talked about what she would do after he died. Dad had documented everything. Still overwhelmed, I picked up the phone and called Mr. Anderson. He answered on the second ring. "William," I whispered. I found Dad's letter. I held the USB drive in my hand, and its weight felt heavier than it should have. On the other end of the phone, William, Dad's old friend and lawyer, was quiet for a long moment. Then he finally spoke. "Are you ready to take the next step?" I didn't answer right away. I thought about what was on that drive. Proof of attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy. If we took it to the police, Sarah wouldn't just lose her status and reputation. She would face prison. Her entire life would crumble. But something inside me said to wait. Not yet, I said softly. Let's hold on to it for now. Just knowing we have it is enough. William let out a small laugh, the kind that carried warmth and a bit of relief. Your father said you'd say that, he replied, and I could hear the smile in his voice. He always believed you shared his way of thinking, calm, patient, always planning 5 steps ahead. The next morning, a thick envelope arrived. It came from Sarah's lawyer. Inside was an official document where she gave up all claims to the house and my father's estate. No conditions. No fight. Just surrender. Tucked inside was a short, handwritten note. You win, Patricia. I'm leaving the state. Don't expect to hear from me again. Just keep what you know to yourself. Of course, she had found the hidden cameras. After our confrontation, she must have torn through the house searching for anything that could expose her. She didn't find the USB drive, but she suspected it existed. And that was all we needed. The threat of the evidence was stronger than the evidence itself. I stood in Dad's study after reading her letter, surrounded by the familiar scent of old wood, paper, and memories. This room, this house, our home, was safe now. He had protected me even in death. He had taught me one last lesson in silence, that real strength often comes not from reacting, but from knowing when to wait, when to act, and when to simply let the truth speak for itself. The house stayed just as he had wanted it. Every piece of furniture, every crack in the floorboards, every faded photograph told our story. It wasn't just a place. It was a symbol of everything we'd shared, our love, our struggles, our victories. Sarah had tried to take it all, but she had failed. Just like she had failed to come between me and Dad. Out in the garden, his roses were blooming brighter than ever. I took care of them the way he used to, pruning them gently and talking to them like old friends. Each flower that opened felt like a whisper from him, a reminder that he was still with me. Sometimes, as I knelt among the petals, I could almost hear his voice. Remember, Pate, he used to say, the strongest roots grow in silence. They stay hidden until it's time to bloom. He had been right. Real strength doesn't always come from confrontation. Sometimes, it comes from watching, waiting, and letting others reveal their true selves. Sarah showed me what deceit looked like. But Dad, he showed me something much greater. How to see clearly, how to protect what matters, and how to win without ever losing who you are. The house still stands, calm and steady, like a quiet monument to love, patience, and justice, not loud or flashy, but complete. And somewhere I like to think, Dad is watching, smiling with pride. His final lesson stayed with me. As for the USB drive, it remains hidden, tucked safely behind that same loose brick in the fireplace. A silent guardian, a quiet piece of truth. It might never be needed, but it's there, just in case. After all, as Dad always told me, timing is everything.
The moment I saw the giant "Congratulations on your pregnancy" banner, I knew I was going to destroy my mother-in-law's perfect little world. I'm Valeria, and this wasn't how I planned to announce my pregnancy. Not even close. Standing in Carmen's marble-floored mansion, surrounded by at least 100 faces I barely recognized, I felt my stomach twist, and not from morning sickness. Surprise! The crowd erupted as Mark, my husband, grabbed my hand and pulled me forward. His mother, Carmen, stood center stage, practically vibrating with self-satisfaction, her perfectly styled silver hair catching the chandelier light. What is this? I managed to whisper to Mark, my fingers trembling in his grip. Mom wanted to make it special for us, he beamed, completely missing the horror in my eyes. For you, Carmen swooped in, her designer perfume suffocating me as she wrapped her arms around my shoulders. Oh, darling, we couldn't let such wonderful news stay quiet, could we? Everyone's been dying to celebrate. Everyone but me, apparently. When did you... I started, but Carmen was already addressing the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, I am overjoyed to announce that my precious son Mark and his lovely wife are expecting their first child. Finally, a new addition to the Lucas Walton legacy. The room exploded in applause. I spotted familiar faces, my co-workers, Mark's entire extended family, even my elderly aunt who lived 3 states away. They'd all known before me. About my own pregnancy announcement. "Speech," someone called out. Others joined in. Mark squeezed my hand. "Go on, honey. Tell everyone how excited we are." I looked at him, really looked at him. 6 years of marriage, and he still couldn't see me drowning. Or worse, he could, and he just didn't care. My voice cracked. The room fell silent, expectant. Carmen's perfectly lined lips twitched with anticipation. That's when I saw the photographer, professional equipment, already snapping away. Of course, Carmen never did anything without documentation. This is, I forced a smile, unexpected. Carmen laughed, high and theatrical. "Oh, she's just overwhelmed. Pregnancy hormones. You know how it is, ladies." The crowd chuckled knowingly. I felt my cheeks burn as Carmen patted my stomach, like she owned it. 8 weeks along, she announced proudly. Due in early spring. We're thinking March will be perfect for the baby shower. I've already booked the country club. My vision blurred. 8 weeks. The same point I lost the last one. The miscarriage only Mark knew about. The one we'd promised to keep private until we were sure. The one that still haunted my dreams. "Excuse me," I managed, pulling away from Mark's grip. "I need some air." "Valeria," Mark called after me, but Carmen's voice cut through. "Let her go, darling. First trimester is always emotional. Now, who wants to hear about the nursery plans?" I made it to Carmen's pristine powder room just in time to throw up. As I splashed cold water on my face, I caught my reflection in the gilt-edged mirror. I barely recognized myself. My phone buzzed. A notification. Carmen had already tagged me in photos on social media. "Surprise pregnancy announcement," the caption read. "So blessed to share this magical moment. Baby Walton. Proud grandma. Blessed family." Another buzz, then another. The likes and comments were rolling in. I gripped the marble counter, knuckles white. Through the door, I could hear the party continuing without me. Carmen's voice carried, telling someone about her plans for traditional family photos. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Nina from work. "Are you okay? This seems intense." For the first time that evening I smiled, a real smile, though not a nice one. "I'm fine," I typed back. "But Carmen won't be." I straightened my dress, checked my makeup, and took a deep breath. Out there, they were all waiting for the good, grateful daughter-in-law to return, the compliant vessel for the next generation of Carmen's legacy. They had no idea what was coming. I opened the bathroom door, head high. Let them take their photos. Let Carmen have her moment. Let Mark bask in his mother's approval. I had already started drafting my own announcement in my head, one that would burn this whole facade to the ground. "There you are," Carmen trilled as I rejoined the party. "Feel better, dear? Come, come, the cake cutting is next." I smiled and nodded, playing my part. But inside, I was already at war. This baby would never be Carmen's do-over child. This pregnancy would not be her social media campaign. And this woman, me, would never be her puppet again. I just had to decide where to light the first match. "You're being dramatic again," Mark said, loosening his tie as we finally got home from the party. "Mom just wanted to make it special." I stood in our kitchen, still in my party dress, staring at the world's best grandma mug Carmen had pressed into my hands as a parting gift. "Special? She invited my entire office, Mark. My boss knew before I could tell her myself. She was excited. You know how she gets. Oh, I know exactly how she gets. I opened my phone's gallery, scrolling through years of evidence. Remember our wedding? When she changed the entire color scheme 2 days before because burgundy photographs better than navy? Mark sighed that familiar sigh, the one that meant I was being difficult again. That was years ago, and she was right, wasn't she? The photos looked amazing. They looked like her wedding, not ours. I set the mug down hard enough to crack it. Good. Just like tonight, looked like her pregnancy announcement, not ours. Val, come on. You're hormonal. Don't. My voice could have frozen hell. Don't you dare blame this on hormones. He held up his hands in surrender, but his eyes were already glazing over, checking out, like always. You told her, I said quietly, about the baby, when we agreed to wait. She got it out of me. You know how she is when she suspects something. And the miscarriage? Did you tell her about that too? His silence was answer enough. Jesus, Mark. I pressed my palms against my eyes. That was private. That was ours. She's family. No, she's your family. And she's been running our lives since day one. I started counting on my fingers. She convinced you to turn down that job in Seattle because it was too far from home. She just happened to buy the house next door when we were house hunting. She has a key to our front door that I never gave her. She might need to check on us. Check on us? Mark, I'm 32 years old. I don't need checking on. My phone buzzed again. Another notification. Carmen had posted more photos, including ones of me clearly trying to leave the party. The caption read, "Someone's getting shy with all the attention. Ash pregnancy glow. Sash blessed mama." I showed him the post. This is what she does. She takes every private moment and turns it into her personal PR campaign. Mark barely glanced at it. You're overreacting. Mom's just proud. Proud? I laughed, but it wasn't funny. Last month she told her book club I might be infertile because I wasn't getting pregnant fast enough. Her exact words were, "Such a shame, but we'll keep trying." She didn't mean, "Stop defending her." I slammed my hand on the counter. For once in your life, Mark, see what's happening. He stepped back, looking at me like I'd grown a second head. Maybe you should lie down. You've had a long night. That's when I saw it. Really saw it. The same dismissive look Carmen gave me whenever I disagreed with her plans. The same patronizing head tilt. He was her perfect mirror. I walked to my home office without another word, closed the door, and opened my laptop. The folder marked Exit was right where I'd left it, filled with screenshots, recordings, and a growing list of lawyer recommendations. A new email popped up from Nina. That party was insane. Call me if you need anything. I typed back quickly. Remember that photographer friend of yours? The one who does maternity shoots? Is she free this week? Nina's response was immediate. Hell yes. Want to do this right? Want to do this my way, I replied. Another buzz from my phone. Carmen again. Darling, I'm thinking we should do a gender reveal next month. I've already contacted the skywriting company. I turned my phone off and opened a fresh document. Started typing everything I wanted to say. Everything I'd kept quiet about for 6 years. Mark knocked softly. Val, Mum wants to know if you're free for lunch tomorrow. She wants to discuss nursery themes. I kept typing. Tell her I'm busy. She says it's important. Everything with her is important, Mark. Everything except what I want. He lingered in the doorway. You know she loves you, right? In her way. I looked up from my screen, meeting his eyes. Her way isn't love, Mark. It's control, and I'm done with it. He left, probably to call Carmen, to tell her I was being difficult again. Let him. Let them plot and plan and arrange my life without me. I had my own plans now. I opened my email and clicked on one of the lawyer consultations I'd bookmarked weeks ago. Subject line: seeking advice on separation. Time to write my own story. The photos were perfect. Nina's friend had captured exactly what I wanted. Just me, bathed in natural light, one hand on my barely showing belly. No forced smiles, no staged family portraits, just quiet strength and raw honesty. "You sure about this?" Nina asked, watching me format the Instagram post. We sat in her apartment, away from Mark's and Carmen's prying eyes. "Never been more sure." I added the caption I'd spent days crafting. "This is my pregnancy announcement. Not a surprise party I didn't consent to. Not a social media campaign I didn't approve. Just me, my body, my choice, my story. To those who think they own my pregnancy, you don't. To those who violated my privacy, you won't again. To those who think maternal boundaries don't matter, watch me. My body, my announcement. Boundaries matter." "Holy shit," Nina whispered as I hit post. "Carmen's going to lose it." That's the point. My phone started buzzing immediately. First comment, Carmen, of course. "Darling, what are you doing? Take this down immediately. We already had the lovely announcement party." Then Mark. "Val, please call me. Mom's really upset." I turned off notifications and looked at Nina. "How long until it hits the local mom groups?" 3, 2, 1. My posts started spreading like wildfire. Women I'd never met began sharing their own stories of boundary-stomping in-laws and stolen moments. "You're so brave for standing up to her." "My Emil did the same thing with my first baby. Wish I'd had your courage." "This is the energy we need in 2023. Then came the flying monkeys. "How ungrateful can you be? Carmen just wanted to celebrate." "Some people would kill for a MIL who cares this much." "Attention-seeking much?" My phone rang. Carmen's personal ringtone. I let it go to voicemail. "Valeria." Her voice was sharp enough to cut glass. "I don't know what kind of hormone-induced breakdown you're having, but you will take down that post immediately. We are family. We don't air our dirty laundry in public." Delete. Another call. Another voicemail. "Mark is devastated." "Is that what you wanted? To hurt your husband? To hurt me?" Delete. "You know what?" Nina said, scrolling through the responses. "You've started something here. Look at all these women sharing their stories." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. My heart stopped when I opened it. "Val? It's Morgan. I saw your post. We need to talk." Morgan. My best friend since childhood, who'd mysteriously stopped talking to me right after my wedding. Who Carmen had said was jealous of my happiness. "She's reaching out now?" Nina asked, reading over my shoulder. "After 3 years of silence." I typed back, "What's there to talk about?" Morgan's response came quickly. "Carmen told me you wanted space, said you thought I was trying to come between you and Mark. I believed her. I'm so sorry." The pieces clicked into place. Another manipulation, another controlled narrative. My office phone rang. Carmen herself standing in our lobby. "Ma'am, there's a Mrs. Lucas here to see you," our receptionist said nervously. "She says it's a family emergency." I could hear Carmen's voice in the background. "Tell her it's her mother-in-law. Tell her we need to talk as family." "Tell her I'm in a meeting," I replied. "And Sarah? Call security if she doesn't leave." I hung up and turned to Nina. "It's starting." "What's starting?" "The consequences." I opened my laptop and pulled up the folder marked Exit. Carmen's realizing she can't control this narrative. She's going to escalate. "What are you going to do?" I clicked on a new email from Reed, the lawyer I'd contacted. "I'm going to let her. Every reaction, every manipulation, every guilt trip. It's all evidence now." My phone lit up with a text from Mark. "Mum's crying. She says her heart can't take this stress. Please, Val, think about what you're doing. I showed Nina the message. Want to bet how long before she ends up in the emergency room with mysterious chest pains? That's oddly specific. Just wait. I started typing a response to Morgan. Coffee tomorrow? There's a lot we need to catch up on. Nina squeezed my shoulder. You know this is going to get worse before it gets better, right? I looked at my reflection in the window, clear-eyed, straight-backed, finally breathing freely. Good, I said. Let it get worse. I'm done being quiet. My phone buzzed one final time. A text from Carmen. If you want to play this game, dear, remember who has more to lose. I smiled and screenshot the threat. More evidence for the folder. Game on, Carmen. Game on. She did what? Morgan's coffee cup froze halfway to her mouth. We sat in a quiet corner of a cafe across town, 3 years of silence finally breaking. Faked chest pains, I said, sliding my phone across the table. Right on schedule. Mark's been blowing up my phone since last night about rushing her to the ER. Morgan read the texts, her eyes widening. Mom's in critical condition. The doctors say it's stress-induced. How could you do this to her? Keep reading. The EKG was inconclusive, but Mom says she's never felt pain like this before. Morgan looked up. Please tell me you're not falling for this. I pulled up another photo on my phone, a recent Instagram post from Carmen at her tennis club, dated 2 hours after her supposed emergency room visit. She's really slipping. Used to be more careful about her timing. God, this brings back memories. Morgan stirred her coffee absently. Remember Mark's college graduation? When she collapsed, right as he was about to tell her he got a job offer in Seattle? Miraculous recovery once he turned it down, though. Morgan's face darkened. Val, about what happened after your wedding? The cafe door chimed. Mark walked in, spotting us immediately. Of course. Carmen's tennis club was just around the corner. Val! He hurried over, looking desperate. Why aren't you answering your phone? Mom's playing tennis, I finished, showing him the Instagram post, quite energetically for someone in critical condition. He faltered. That's an old post. Posted 2 hours ago, Mark. Timestamp doesn't lie. Morgan? He noticed her finally, confusion crossing his face. What are you doing here? Mom said you lied about me? Morgan cut in. Yeah, we're just figuring that out ourselves. Mark sank into an empty chair, uninvited. Val, please. Whatever's going on with you, we can fix it. Mom's willing to forgive. Forgive? I laughed. That's rich. Tell me something, Mark. Why did you tell her about the miscarriage? His face went pale. Morgan gasped softly beside me. She could tell something was wrong. She kept asking. And you couldn't say no. Just like you couldn't say no about the surprise party. Just like you can't say no to anything she wants. She's my mother. And I'm your wife. The cafe went quiet. I lowered my voice. I'm your wife. And that was the most private, painful thing we've ever been through. But you told her anyway. Val, did you know she told her book club? Made it all about her pain, her disappointment. While I was still bleeding, Mark. While I was still grieving. Morgan reached for my hand under the table. Mark just stared, mouth opening and closing like a fish. She wouldn't check her Facebook posts from March 15th last year. She hashtagged it, "Pray for my angel." Didn't even bother to hide it. Mark pulled out his phone, fingers shaking as he scrolled. I watched the color drain from his face as he found the post. Mom said, "She said you were being dramatic about wanting privacy. That family shares everything." Family shares what people choose to share, Morgan said quietly, not what's stolen from them. My phone buzzed. A text from Reed, my lawyer. Documents ready for review. Can you meet today? I have to go, I said, standing. Morgan, thanks for coffee. And for the truth. Val, wait! Mark grabbed my wrist. Where are you going? We need to talk about this. I pulled free. You need to talk to your mother. Ask her about the tennis match she played while supposedly dying in the ER. Ask her why she told Morgan I wanted nothing to do with her. Ask her anything, Mark. Just for once, ask her the hard questions. She's not perfect, but she loves us. No, Mark, she loves control, and you let her have it every time. I walked out, Morgan following. Behind us, I heard Mark's phone ring, Carmen's ringtone. You okay? Morgan asked as we reached my car. No. I touched my belly gently. But I will be. This baby deserves better than lies and manipulation. I deserve better. What's next? I showed her Reed's text. Freedom. Want to come with me to meet my lawyer? Morgan smiled, the same fierce smile I remembered from our childhood, when we'd promised to always have each other's backs. Try and stop me. As we drove away, I saw Mark through the cafe window, phone to his ear, nodding along to whatever story Carmen was spinning now. Let her spin. Let her scheme and manipulate and play victim. I had truth on my side. And finally, I had my best friend back. My phone buzzed one more time. Carmen. Mark tells me you're with that awful Morgan girl. Haven't you hurt this family enough? Delete. Some messages don't deserve a response. Your husband's company is deeply entangled with your mother-in-law's finances, Reed said, spreading documents across his desk. Carmen's name is on half the business assets. I leaned forward, Morgan beside me. What exactly does that mean? It means, Reed adjusted his glasses, that when we file for divorce, we're going to find some interesting tax discrepancies. Carmen's been using the company to hide money. Of course she has. I wasn't even surprised anymore. My phone lit up. Another text from Mark. Baby, please come home. I got your favorite takeout. We can talk about everything. Then, I sent flowers to your office. And, remember our first date, when we danced in the rain? He's love-bombing you, Morgan said, reading over my shoulder. Carmen's playbook, I replied. When manipulation fails, try romance. Reed cleared his throat. There's something else. Your mother-in-law has been telling people you're experiencing pregnancy psychosis. She's what? Morgan straightened in her chair. Several social media posts suggesting you're unstable, hormonal, potentially dangerous to yourself. He turned his monitor to show us Carmen's private Facebook posts, somehow obtained. She's laying groundwork to challenge your fitness as a mother. My hand instinctively went to my belly. She wouldn't. She would, Morgan said quietly. Remember what she did to Mark's first girlfriend in college? The one who wanted to study abroad? I did remember. The girl mysteriously lost her scholarship after Carmen spread rumors about her mental health. My phone buzzed again. A text from Nina. Carmen's here at the office again. Security's dealing with it, but she's making a scene. What's she saying? I typed back. Nina's response came with a video. Carmen in our office lobby, tears streaming perfectly down her face, makeup immaculate despite her breakdown. My daughter-in-law needs help. Carmen's voice rang through the phone's speaker. She's not well. She's turning my son against me, against his own mother. Classic Darvo, Reed commented. Deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. She's making herself the victim of your boundaries. My phone exploded with notifications. Carmen's performance had already hit social media. Praying for this poor mother's heart? Some pregnant women really do lose their minds. Carmen Lucas is such a strong woman dealing with this crisis with grace. Grace? Morgan scoffed. She's about as graceful as a bull in a china shop. Another text from Mark. Mom's really crying now. Real tears, Val. Please come home. What's our next move? I asked Reed. He smiled, sliding a folder across the desk. We go nuclear. Legally, quietly, but completely. I opened the folder. Inside was every financial document, every manipulative text, every social media post where Carmen had overstepped. Plus, something else. Proof of tax evasion going back years. How did you get all this? Let's just say Carmen's tennis partner's husband works for the IRS, and he's not a fan of her methods. My phone rang. Mark again. This time I answered, putting it on speaker. Val, please. Mark, I'm only going to say this once. Your mother is currently at my office, telling everyone I'm mentally unstable. That's defamation. She's worried about you. We all are. No, she's worried about losing control. And you're letting her destroy any chance we might have had to fix this. Silence on his end. Then, what do you want me to do? I want you to grow up, Mark. I want you to see what she's doing. But mostly, I want you to get ready for what's coming. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm done playing nice. Check your email in an hour. I hung up and looked at Reed. Do it. File everything. He nodded, reaching for his phone. It's going to get ugly. It already is. I stood up, suddenly tired. But I'd rather have ugly truth than beautiful lies. Morgan linked her arm through mine as we left Reed's office. You know she's going to escalate again. Let her. Every scene she makes, every lie she tells, every manipulation she tries, it all goes in the file now. My phone buzzed one final time. A group text from Carmen to the entire family. Please pray for our family in this difficult time. Sometimes those we love most become strangers to us. Mark and I are devastated, but staying strong through faith and family. Pray for Valeria. Pregnancy, crisis, family first. I showed Morgan the text. She squeezed my arm. Ready for war? She asked. I thought about my baby, growing strong despite everything. Thought about the future I wanted, one built on truth, not performance. This isn't war, I said. It's liberation. And I meant every word. The charity gala invitation sat on my desk like a landmine. Annual Lucas Family Foundation benefit in gold embossed letters, with a handwritten note from Carmen. Family stands together. Don't embarrass us. You're not actually going, are you? Nina asked, perched on the edge of my desk. Oh, I'm going. I smoothed my hand over my growing baby bump. It's time to end this. The night of the gala arrived crisp and clear. I chose a fitted black dress that emphasized, rather than hid, my pregnancy. No pastels, no bows, no Carmen-approved maternal softness. Morgan met me at the entrance to the country club. Ready? Born ready. We walked in to find Carmen holding court near the champagne fountain, Mark hovering at her elbow. She spotted me immediately, her perfect smile faltering for just a second. Valeria, darling. She air-kissed my cheeks. We weren't sure you'd come, in your condition. Wouldn't miss it, I said sweetly. Especially since you're announcing the Foundation's new board members tonight. Her smile tightened. Yes, well, including the new Financial Oversight Committee? A champagne glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the marble floor. Mark jumped to clean it up. Careful, Mum, he said. Your heart. I'm fine, she snapped, then caught herself. Just worried about Valeria. Should you really be here, dear? In your fragile state? I'm pregnant, Carmen, not invalid. But speaking of states, I nodded to the podium. Isn't it time for your speech? She gripped Mark's arm. Come with me, darling. I need you to introduce me. I watched them go, Carmen whispering urgently in Mark's ear. Morgan handed me a sparkling water. How long? She asked. Wait for it. Carmen took the stage, radiant in designer silk. Welcome, everyone. Tonight is about family, About legacy. I moved closer to the front, phone in hand. About standing together through difficulties. Her eyes found me in the crowd, narrowing slightly. Even when certain people lose their way? I raised my hand. Question, Carmen? The room went silent. Mark's face went pale. Valeria, this isn't the time. Actually, it's the perfect time. While everyone's here. I stepped forward. Would you like to explain the Foundation's offshore accounts? Or should I? Carmen's hand flew to her chest. I don't know what you're... Or maybe we should discuss the tax documents. The ones showing how you've been using the Foundation to hide personal expenses. Mom? Mark's voice cracked. What is she talking about? She's confused, Carmen said quickly. The pregnancy... The IRS isn't confused, I cut in. They're actually very clear, just like I'm clear about something else. I turned to face the crowd, many of whom had their phones out, recording. I'm divorcing Mark, not because I don't love him, but because love shouldn't mean surrender. I'm having this baby, but not as a prop in someone else's performance. And I'm done, completely done, with letting anyone else write my story. Carmen swayed dramatically. My heart. Save it, Morgan called out. The tennis club posted photos of your match this morning. Your heart's fine. Mark, Carmen reached for him. Tell them, explain. But Mark was staring at his phone, at the documents I'd just had Reed send him. His face went from pale to ashen. Mom, what did you do? Nothing. I did everything for you. For us. By committing tax fraud? By protecting our legacy. Her voice echoed through the ballroom. People stepped back, whispers rising. Your legacy, I said quietly, is manipulation, but it ends here. Carmen's mask finally cracked. You ungrateful little... She stepped toward me, hand raised. And then, like perfect karma, she actually did faint. No one moved to catch her. Someone call an ambulance, she cried from the floor. I'm having an attack. Silence. Then someone laughed. Then another. Get up, Carmen, an elderly woman said. We've all seen this show before. I walked to the podium as Carmen scrambled to her feet, dignity in shreds. The Foundation's financial records will be turned over to the proper authorities tomorrow, I announced. I suggest anyone involved in the accounts speak to their lawyers tonight. You're destroying this family, Carmen shrieked. No, I said, touching my belly again. I'm protecting mine. I walked out with Morgan, head high, leaving chaos behind me. Through the doors, I heard Mark's voice rise above the din. Mom, what else have you been lying about? In the parking lot, Morgan hugged me tight. You did it. Not yet. I pulled out my phone, opened Instagram, and started typing. Now everyone gets to hear the whole story. Behind us, Carmen's carefully curated world continued to crumble. And I felt nothing but free. The IRS officially launched their investigation this morning, Reed said, sliding a newspaper across his desk. The headline read, Local Family Foundation under federal investigation. How's Carmen taking it? Morgan asked, sitting beside me. I checked my phone. According to her latest post, she's seeking healing at an exclusive wellness retreat. Translation, hiding from reporters. And Mark? Still trying to save what's left of the company. I rubbed my now prominent belly. He sent divorce papers back, signed. Nina burst into Reed's office, waving her tablet. You guys need to see this. She pulled up a viral video compilation. Carmen's greatest hits. Her fainting spells, her tearful performances, her social media manipulation. All spliced together by some genius online sleuth. 2 million views already, Nina said. People are calling her the mother-in-law from hell. The timing couldn't be better, Reed said, pulling out a fresh stack of papers. The judge granted your emergency order. Carmen can't come within 500 feet of you or your workplace. My phone buzzed. A text from Mark. Can we talk? Please? In person? I showed Morgan the message. Are you going to? I think I have to. I looked at Reed. Any legal reason I shouldn't? He shook his head. Just meet somewhere public. 2 hours later, I sat across from Mark at our old favorite coffee shop. He looked terrible, exhausted, unshaven, wearing the same wrinkled shirt from yesterday. The company's finished, he said without preamble. Mom's actions, the investigation, everything's frozen. I'm sorry. Are you? He looked up, eyes red. You brought this all down. No, Mark. Carmen brought this down. Years of lies and manipulation brought this down. She was trying to protect us. Stop. I pushed my untouched tea aside. Just stop. Even now you're defending her. He deflated. I don't know how not to. I know. And I did. That was the tragedy of it all. My phone lit up with a notification. Someone had found and shared my old pregnancy journal entry from the miscarriage. Today I lost more than a baby. I lost the right to grieve privately. My mother-in-law made my pain into her social media moment. Never again. Next time will be different. Next time will be mine. Mark read it over my shoulder, face crumpling. I remember that post she made. The one about being a grandmother angel. I knew it hurt you, but I couldn't stand up to her, couldn't protect me, couldn't be a husband instead of a son. He nodded, tears falling. The company wasn't the only thing that's finished, is it? No. I touched my belly. But this baby will have something better than a perfect social media family. They'll have truth. And me? That depends on you. On whether you can finally cut the cord. My phone buzzed again. Carmen had posted from her retreat. A mother's love is forever, even when betrayed. Pray for my son. Mark saw it and actually laughed, a broken, hollow sound. Even now, even after everything. She'll never change, Mark. I know. I think I've always known. He stood up slowly. The house is yours. I'll get my things this weekend. Where will you go? My friend Jake offered his guest room, far from Mom's house. It was a start. A small one, but still. As he turned to leave, he paused. Will you let me know when the baby comes? Yes, but not through Carmen. Not through social media. Just between us? He nodded and walked out. I watched him go, feeling lighter somehow. Morgan was waiting in her car outside. You okay? Actually, yes. I showed her my phone. Carmen's latest post already had hundreds of negative comments, people sharing their own stories of maternal manipulation, of boundaries crossed, of silence finally broken. You started a movement, Morgan said softly. No. I pulled out my old journal, turned to the last page. I just finished what I promised myself back then, to never let anyone else control my story again. My phone lit up one last time, a message from Mark. I just blocked Mum's number. It's not much, but it's a start. I smiled and put the phone away. Let Carmen post what she wanted. Let her play victim to an empty audience. I had a nursery to paint, a life to rebuild, and a story to tell, my own. Ready to go home? Morgan asked. Home. Not the house Carmen had chosen, but the small cottage I'd bought with my own money, far from her reach. More than ready. The sun was setting as we drove away, casting long shadows behind us. Sometimes the happiest endings start with burning everything down. Push! The midwife's voice cut through everything else. You're almost there! Morgan gripped my left hand, Nina my right. No hospital room drama, no family spectacle, just my chosen support team and the quiet strength of my home birth plan. One more, the midwife encouraged. Your baby's ready to meet you. The final push brought with it a cry, Strong, defiant, perfect. It's a girl, the midwife announced, placing her on my chest. Healthy and beautiful. I touched her tiny face, memorizing every detail. No phones, no cameras, no social media countdown. Just this sacred, private moment. "She's gorgeous," Morgan whispered. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Mark's ringtone. I nodded to Nina, who answered it on speaker. "Is everything okay?" His voice was tight with worry. "The lawyer said you'd gone into labor." "She's here," I said softly. "She's perfect." A shaky breath on his end. Would it be all right if I came to meet her? Just me, I promise." I looked at Morgan, who nodded. "Give us an hour to clean up. And Mark, don't tell your mother." "I haven't spoken to her in weeks," he said. "Not since the court date where Carmen had tried to claim grandparental rights, only to be shut down by her own history of manipulation and the ongoing federal investigation into her foundation." An hour later, Mark stood in my cottage's doorway, holding a small purple elephant. "I remembered you liked purple," he said awkwardly, "and no pink because pink was Carmen's choice, not mine." I adjusted the baby in my arms. "Would you like to hold your daughter?" He took her carefully, tears falling freely. "She looks like you." "Poor kid," Morgan joked, breaking the tension. My phone buzzed again. A news alert. "Local socialite Carmen Lucas pleads guilty to financial fraud." Mark saw it and sighed. "She took a deal. 3 years probation, mandatory counseling, full restitution. Will she follow through? Doesn't matter anymore." He handed the baby back gently. "I'm done managing her feelings." Nina appeared with tea. "Have you thought about names?" I nodded. "Diana, it means divine." "Mum will hate it," Mark said, then caught himself. "Sorry, old habits." "It's okay." I touched Diana's cheek. "She'll learn to live with disappointment." A soft knock at the door. Reed, carrying papers and a small gift. "Sorry to interrupt, but I thought you'd want to see these." He handed me the papers. "Judge signed them this morning. The restraining order is permanent." Mark nodded slowly. "Good. Diana deserves better than what I had growing up." My phone lit up with messages from the online community that had formed around my story. Women sharing their own birth stories, their own boundaries, their own victories. "Should I post something?" Nina asked. "Let people know you're okay?" "No." I looked around at my chosen family, Morgan's fierce loyalty, Nina's unwavering support, Reed's quiet protection, and Mark's stumbling steps toward freedom. Some moments don't need witnesses. "I should go," Mark said, standing. "But thank you for letting me be here, for doing this better than we did everything else." After he left, Morgan brought me my journal, the one from the miscarriage, the one that started it all. "Want to write something for Diana?" I opened to a fresh page and wrote, "Dear Diana, you'll never be a prop in someone else's story. You'll never have to perform your feelings for an audience. You'll never doubt that your boundaries matter. You were born into truth, not theater. Welcome to the world, my divine girl." A final text came through from Mark. "Mom somehow heard. She's posting about her granddaughter Angel. I reported and blocked her account." I showed Morgan and laughed. "Let her post. Let her perform. We're not in her audience anymore." Diana stirred, opening eyes that held nothing but future. No manipulation, no control, no carefully curated perfection. Just love. Real, messy, honest love. "Ready for visitors?" Nina asked. "Your real family's been waiting outside." I nodded, and she opened the door to reveal my co-workers, my neighbors, my true support system, people who had stood by me through everything. They entered quietly, respecting the peace of the moment. No phones out, no social media poses, just genuine joy. Welcome to the family, Morgan whispered to Diana. The kind worth having. I held my daughter close, surrounded by the authenticity I'd fought so hard to claim. No more performances, no more perfect pictures, no more puppet strings, just us, writing our own story. And it was beautiful.
Hi, I'm Patricia Baker, and this is the story of how I discovered that sometimes the people closest to you, your own family, can turn out to be your biggest challenge, especially when it comes to business. For over a decade, I gave everything I had, my time, my energy, my ideas, to our small family-owned tech company. What started as a tiny computer repair shop in a quiet strip mall eventually became a thriving $110 million software enterprise. I was proud. I believed we had all succeeded together. But what I didn't see coming was how success could stir up envy, even within your own home. Let me take you back to the beginning. My dad started the computer repair shop around 30 years ago. It was his passion project. Even though it didn't bring in much money, it meant the world to him. He ran it with pride, often working long hours just to keep the lights on. Back then, it barely paid the bills. But to him, it was a legacy. I was the quiet one in the family, the one who stayed behind to help Dad, while also working toward a degree in computer science at our local college. My sister Kelly, on the other hand, was the golden child. Straight, top of her class, and later, a student at one of the most prestigious business schools in the country. Everyone always expected big things from her. "Patricia, you're wasting your potential here," Kelly used to say when she visited during college breaks. "You should be doing more, aiming higher." But I saw something she didn't. I saw the opportunity in our small shop. While Kelly was studying business theory, I was gaining hands-on experience in programming and learning about the real-world challenges that small businesses faced. I wasn't just dreaming, I was building. During my final year in college, I created our first piece of original software, a simple but efficient inventory management tool for small businesses. It wasn't flashy, but it worked well, and it was affordable. At first, Dad was unsure. He didn't think people would buy it. But when the first few local businesses started purchasing licenses and spreading the word, he changed his mind. "Maybe you're onto something here, kiddo," he said with a rare smile. For a moment, I felt truly seen. That one sentence fueled me for years. After I graduated, I dove in headfirst. I worked 15-hour days, 6 days a week. I handled everything: development, customer support, marketing. Slowly but surely, the shop evolved into a software company. We expanded our services and gained more clients, going from our local community to national partnerships. Through it all, my mom would check in on me, gently concerned. "Don't work yourself too hard, Patricia," she'd say as she brought me dinner at the office. "You need a life outside of this." But I was driven, not just by ambition, but by a need to prove myself. To show my family that I was more than the quiet girl in the background. After 5 intense years, our business finally reached a major milestone: $3 million in annual revenue. It was a huge deal. That's when things started to change. Out of nowhere, Kelly announced she was moving back home. She had quit her high-powered job at a top consulting firm in Florida and was ready, she said, to take her rightful place in the company. We were at the dinner table when she said it, so casually, as if it were always meant to happen. "With my business expertise," she said confidently, "we could take things to the next level." Dad looked at her with pride in his eyes. "That's wonderful, Princess," he said. "We could use your professional touch around here." And just like that, I felt everything stop. My fork hung midair, and my thoughts raced. The company I had built with sleepless nights and relentless effort was now being offered to Kelly, just because she had a fancy degree and the right words. No mention of the years I put in. No recognition of how we even got to this point. I realized then that success doesn't always protect you. It can sometimes put a target on your back, even from the people you love most. But I kept my thoughts to myself and decided to play along, hoping things might work out. I didn't want to create tension in front of my family or our employees. So I smiled, nodded, and tried to be a team player. That's how Kelly became co-CEO, despite having zero experience in our industry. Dad thought it would look good for the company to have someone with her background and fancy degree up front. He said it would impress investors and help our image. I didn't agree, but I accepted it. From then on, I focused on what I did best, building products, managing operations, and working closely with our clients. Kelly, on the other hand, became the face of the company. She handled marketing, public appearances, and investor relations. The next 7 years felt like a strange split. While I was buried in code and team meetings, making sure our software stayed innovative and useful, Kelly was attending tech conferences, accepting awards, and giving interviews about being a successful woman in tech. She told stories that made it sound like she had created the very tools I spent sleepless nights building. Despite the imbalance, the company continued to grow. We reached $110 million in annual revenue. But the more we succeeded, the more strained our relationship became. Kelly began leaving me out of important meetings. She made big decisions without telling me, and slowly, she started pushing me to the background, treating me like an employee in a company I had built with my bare hands. Then came Dad's 65th birthday.
Kelly, of course, took charge of the party.
She rented out the grand ballroom at the most luxurious hotel in the city. It wasn't so much a birthday celebration as it was a business event, full of investors, clients, and high-profile guests. That was always Kelly's way. Every move had to serve a purpose. I showed up early to help set up. I wore a simple black dress, nothing flashy, but elegant enough. The moment Kelly saw me, she frowned. "Couldn't you have tried a little harder?" she whispered sharply. "These are important people, Patricia." I bit my tongue. I didn't want to argue. I just focused on greeting guests as they arrived, making sure everything ran smoothly. The room filled fast. Everyone was chatting, drinking, and networking. Kelly floated from group to group, smiling like a politician. I stayed in the background, making sure everything was perfect. Then dinner was served, and Kelly stood to give a speech. I assumed she'd say something heartfelt, share memories about Dad, or thank the team. But instead, she dropped a bomb. "As we celebrate our father's 65th birthday tonight," she began, her voice loud and clear, "it's time to share some exciting news about the future of Greenchin Technologies." I blinked.
News?
What news? "The board has decided that to move forward, the company needs strong, unified leadership," she continued. "For too long, we've been held back by outdated methods and a reluctance to change." I felt the blood drain from my face. What board meetings? I had never been invited to any. That's why, effective immediately, I will be taking over as the sole CEO. The room went completely silent. I could hear forks clink against plates as people turned to look at me. Kelly kept going, cool and confident. "Some people are better suited to technical roles than leadership. My sister Patricia has done an okay job maintaining our systems, but we need vision. We need forward-thinking leadership. And frankly, Patricia, you're just not cut out for this level of business." I sat frozen in my chair. I turned to Dad, waiting for him to say something to defend me, but he didn't. He was nodding along, smiling like this was exactly what he wanted. My mom looked down at her plate, silent and pale, her hands trembling. Kelly wasn't finished. "The truth is," she said, raising her glass, "Patricia's old-fashioned ideas and lack of proper business training have become a burden. It's time for her to step aside, gracefully." The silence in the room was heavier than I'd ever felt. I could feel the judgment, the pity. People whispered, and some avoided my eyes. Everything I had worked for, every sacrifice, every night I stayed up late coding, every client I convinced to believe in us, was all being ripped away in front of hundreds of people. And the worst part? It was my own family doing it. Everything I had built, everything I had worked so hard for, was being taken from me, right in front of all the people I had known for years. I stood up slowly. The sound of my chair dragging against the polished ballroom floor echoed like a thunderclap, turning heads. Everyone expected drama. Maybe I'd cry, maybe I'd yell, but I didn't give them that satisfaction. Instead, I picked up my purse, walked calmly over to my father's table, and placed a small gift-wrapped box in front of him. "Happy birthday, Dad," I said in a soft, steady voice. Then I turned around, head held high, and walked out of that room full of whispers, stares, and smug smiles. I didn't look back. Later that night, as I sat in my home office surrounded by the awards, patents, and certificates that carried my name, I made a decision. Let them celebrate tonight, I thought. Let them believe they've won. Kelly might have thought she outsmarted me, but she had forgotten one very important thing, something that would soon turn her so-called victory into the worst mistake of her life. I opened my laptop and started typing, a quiet smile forming on my lips. Tomorrow was going to be very, very interesting. Because there's more than one way to run a successful company, and while Kelly had been busy posing for magazine covers and giving interviews, I'd spent 12 years learning the real business from the ground up. The next morning dawned clear and bright. I got to the office early, before anyone else, and waited. At exactly 9 a.m., Kelly walked in like she owned the place, Dad, right beside her, both of them beaming like they'd just won the lottery. Their faces were full of pride and satisfaction, faces I couldn't wait to watch crumble. "Patricia?" Kelly said, her voice laced with surprise and a hint of annoyance. "What are you doing here? I thought after last night, you'd at least have the grace to stay home." I smiled, thinking about the email I had sent at 4 a.m. to every major client, partner, and senior staff member at Greenchin Technologies. "Just finishing up a few things, dear sister," I replied calmly. "Since you're here, we might as well talk about the company's future." "There's nothing to discuss," Dad said firmly. "Kelly is in charge now. The board already approved it." The board," I said, pulling out my tablet. "Let's talk about that, shall we?" I connected my tablet to the conference room's big screen. While Kelly was busy throwing parties and giving interviews, I was the one actually building this company. And there are a few key things you've both forgotten. I tapped on the screen and pulled up a document. "First off, let me remind you, I own 55% of Greenchin Technologies. When the company was incorporated 13 years ago, Dad gave both Kelly and me 27% shares and kept 46% for himself. But remember 5 years ago when we needed extra funding to expand? Dad, you sold me 12% of your shares that day because you were too busy attending Kelly's award ceremony to look through the paperwork." Their faces began to pale. Kelly gripped the edge of the table like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "That's not possible," she whispered. "Dad would never." "He did." I cut in, bringing up more documents. "And that's not all. Is the software responsible for 90% of our company's revenue? It isn't owned by Greenchin Technologies. It's owned by my private company, Innovate Solutions, LLC. Greenchin Technologies only has a license to use it." I glanced at my watch. Or rather had a license. That agreement expired about 15 minutes ago. Dad slowly sank into a chair, his face full of shock and dawning realization. "The renewal documents," he mumbled. "The ones you asked me to sign last week. I didn't read them. I was helping Kelly plan the party." "Exactly," I said. "And I decided not to submit them." Kelly's face twisted in anger. "You manipulative little." "Careful, sister," I warned, holding up a hand. "You might want to hear the rest before you finish that sentence. While you were busy celebrating my so-called graceful exit last night, I was doing something else, something far more important. I was sending emails. You see, most of our major clients didn't just sign with Greenchin Technologies because of the company's name. They signed because of me, my experience, my leadership, and my results. Many of them have personal loyalty clauses written into their contracts, clauses that allow them to walk away if I ever leave the company. And last night, I told them I was leaving. I tapped on my tablet and brought up my email inbox. Dozens of replies had already come in, short, sharp, and to the point. I looked straight at Kelly and Dad, my voice calm but firm. "Would you like to know how many clients have already activated their termination clauses?" I asked. "Or how many of our best developers, who, by the way, don't work for Greenchin Technologies but for my separate company Innovate Solutions, have accepted offers to join my new venture?" The room went quiet. Through the glass walls of the conference room, we could see people starting to gather. Employees were checking their phones and reading the company-wide messages and updates. The whispers spread fast, like wildfire. Kelly's carefully practiced smile slipped as she unlocked her phone, fingers shaking. Her perfect world was crumbling around her, and she was realizing just how little control she really had. "You can't do this," she stammered. The company you tried to steal from me?" I interrupted. "The one you thought you could just take over because you have a shiny MBA and Dad's approval? That company stopped existing the moment you humiliated me in front of our family and friends." I stood up slowly and smoothed my dress, letting the silence stretch. Then I laid out their options. "So, here's what happens next," I said clearly, my eyes locking onto both of them. "Option 1, I walk away. I take my shares, my software, my clients, and my employees. Greenshin Technologies becomes an empty shell, just a name on a building. And you can explain to all those investors and partners why the company lost its value overnight." Dad's face looked 12 years older than it had when he walked in. His shoulders slumped as the weight of reality set in. "And option 2? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Option 2, I said, is that you both resign. Right here, right now. I take full control of Greenshin Technologies. You keep your shares as silent partners. You'll still get your dividends, but you'll have no say in how the company is run. Kelly gets a nice severance package and glowing references to help her find a job, somewhere far away from here." Kelly's face turned red with anger. "You planned this," she hissed. "You've been waiting to stab us in the back." I laughed, but there was no joy in it. "No, Kelly. I spent 12 years trying to be a good daughter and a supportive sister. While you took credit for my work, I stayed silent. While you smiled for the cameras, I kept this company alive. I didn't plan this until 12 hours ago, right after you stood on that stage and called me worthless in front of everyone we know." My phone buzzed. Another client had terminated their contract. "Time's running out," I said quietly. "What's it going to be?" The next hour passed in a blur. Lawyers coming in, documents being signed, final decisions made. By noon, I sat alone in what was now officially my office, looking out across the city. The company I had built from nothing was finally mine. I should have felt victorious. But instead, all I felt was empty. The damage had been done. The company survived, but my family didn't. The trust had shattered as fine crystal dropped on a tile floor. The silence in the room felt heavier than any celebration could have lifted. That evening, my mother came to visit. Her eyes were red and tired, as though she'd been crying all day. "Did it really have to end this way?" she asked softly, standing in the doorway. I looked at her for a long moment before replying. "They left me no choice," I said gently. "They would have taken everything I built. They would have erased me from my own story and never looked back." She nodded slowly, sadly. She understood, even if it broke her heart. "And what happens now?" she whispered. I looked out the window, at the skyline lit up by the setting sun.
"Now," I said.
"Now I rebuild on my terms." I laid the blueprints on the table, the ones I had been quietly working on for months. They showed the future I was planning. New products, cutting-edge innovations, and bold expansions into markets we hadn't even touched yet. Ideas I had held back, waiting for the right moment. And now, that moment had arrived. This time, I would build something even greater. But I'd do it without the weight of people who once looked me in the eye and saw someone they thought was easy to dismiss, someone they thought was worthless. Over the next year, Greenshin Technologies flourished under my full control. We didn't just survive. We tripled in value. Clients returned, new partnerships were formed, and the company finally stepped into the spotlight for all the right reasons. Kelly, humbled by the consequences of her actions, moved to Manhattan. She found a position at a small startup, far from the empire she once believed she could control. I hoped she'd grown. I hoped she learned. Dad quietly stepped away from the business. Retirement suited him. He finally saw what he'd been blind to for so long, that his favorite child had nearly ruined everything he spent a lifetime building. We see each other during the holidays now. We smile politely, ask about each other's health, and pass the mashed potatoes like strangers pretending to be close. There's a distance between us that never quite closes. Some wounds just don't heal all the way. Sometimes, late at night, I flip through old photo albums, ones where we're all smiling, frozen in happier moments. I feel a pinch of sadness for the family we used to be, for the closeness we lost. But then I remember that birthday night. I remember Kelly's cold, satisfied smile. I remember Dad's nod of agreement as she tore into me with words sharp enough to cut. Respect, in business and family, is something you earn, not something you inherit, not something you demand. They both learned that lesson, but it came far too late. As for me, I learned something too. I learned that the quiet ones, the underestimated ones, the ones everyone ignores, they're the ones you should be watching. We know how to build from scratch. And more importantly, we know how to take it all back when someone tries to steal what's ours. My story spread. It became a sort of whispered tale in the business world, a reminder to never underestimate the wrong person. These days, when I attend conferences or speak at events, I often hear the murmurs. That's Patricia Greenchin, the one who, they never finish the sentence. They don't need to. My success finishes it for them. Just last week, an invitation arrived. Kelly's old business school wanted me to speak at their graduation ceremony. The topic? Hidden strengths, the power of underestimated leaders. I said yes. With a small smile, I began planning my speech. Because now I have something to say. And people are finally ready to listen. Under my leadership, the company continues to thrive, not just in profits, but in purpose. But more than the success, I've found something else. Peace. Peace in knowing I stayed true to myself. Peace in the choices I made, even the hard ones. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is prove people wrong without saying a word. And sometimes, the best kind of revenge isn't revenge at all. It's rising so high that even the ones who doubted you can't look away. As I sit here in my office, the city skyline stretching far beyond my window, I think of something my mother once told me. Success is the best revenge. But wisdom is knowing when to stop chasing revenge and start chasing growth. She was right. I've let go of the anger. The pain doesn't fuel me anymore. I'm building something now that matters, something lasting, something real. I still have that small, gift-wrapped box, the one I never gave Dad. Inside is a photo album I made for his birthday that year. It tells the story of our company, from that tiny, dusty repair shop to the empire it became. I haven't given it to him yet. Maybe someday I will when we've healed enough. When the silence between us feels a little less sharp. Until then, that box stays on my shelf, a reminder. A quiet symbol of everything I built. Every time I was underestimated. And of the strength I found not in being loud or flashy, but in rising quietly and powerfully on my terms. Because in the end, our greatest strength often comes from the very parts of ourselves that others are too blind to see.